Welcome to the Velvet Crown Tales.
Toddat tale is called The Queen Cursed Me into a Serpent, but the king fell in love with me. Before anyone feared her, they loved her. In the small village of Belava, where stone cottages leaned toward narrow roads and flower boxes spilled colour beneath every window, there lived a young woman whose kindness was spoken of more often than her beauty. Her name was Amara Vale. She was the daughter of a struggling carpenter and a seamstress whose hands had grown stiff from years of work. Their home was small, their meals were simple, and there were winters when the cold slipped through every crack in the walls. Yet Amara never allowed poverty to make her bitter. She brought warm broth to sick neighbours, gathered herbs for the village healer, and often gave away part of her own supper to families who had even less. When children scraped their knees, they ran to Amara. When elderly villagers needed help carrying baskets home from the market, she was already reaching for them. And though she was undeniably beautiful, with thick dark hair, soft brown eyes, and a smile that seemed to warm even the coldest morning, the villagers loved her because she made each of them feel seen. That was why, on the day Queen Lysandra arrived from the neighbouring kingdom, nearly the entire village had gathered around Amara. The queen had travelled to Belava for the kingdom's festival of peace, a grand celebration marking 20 years without war between the surrounding lands. Colourful banners hung from every building. Musicians played beside the fountain, children danced through the streets, and long wooden tables overflowed with bread, fruit, and roasted meat. Queen Lysandra had expected admiration wherever she went. She was accustomed to it. Dressed in violet silk embroidered with gold, she walked through the village beneath a jewelled parasol while servants and guards followed closely behind. A delicate golden crown rested upon her dark hair, and gemstones glittered at her throat. People bowed as she passed, but their eyes did not remain on her. Across the square, Amara was kneeling beside an elderly flower seller whose basket had overturned. Roses and lilies were scattered across the stones. Instead of joining the crowd around the visiting queen, Amara was carefully gathering each flower and placing it back into the woman's basket. Several villagers watched her with affection. "There is no one kinder than that girl," an old man said. "And no one more beautiful," another answered. Queen Lysandra heard them. Her steps slowed. Her gaze moved from the villagers to Amara, who had not yet noticed her. The queen saw the young woman's plain cream dress, mended at the sleeves. She saw her simple braided hair and the faint dust along the hem of her skirt. There was nothing royal about her, and yet the people looked at Amara with a warmth they had not shown their queenly guest. When Amara finally rose, she handed the flower seller her basket and kissed the elderly woman's cheek. The villagers smiled. Something cold tightened inside Queen Lysandra. One of her attendants leaned closer. "Your Majesty." "Who is she?" the queen asked. The attendant followed her gaze. "Only a carpenter's daughter." "Only?" The sharpness in the queen's voice made the attendant lower her head. Amara turned then and finally noticed the royal procession. Her eyes widened. She immediately bowed. "Your Majesty," she said. Her voice was gentle, respectful. Queen Lysandra studied her face. Up close, Amara was even more beautiful. But it was not only her face that disturbed the queen. It was the peacefulness in her expression, the ease with which she smiled, the way people around her seemed happier simply because she stood among them. Queen Lysandra had worn a crown for 15 years, yet even in her own kingdom, people obeyed her out of duty and fear. No one looked at her the way these villagers looked at Amara. "Stand," the queen ordered. Amara obeyed. "I am told you are greatly admired here." Amara glanced toward the villagers, visibly embarrassed. "They are generous to say so." "You do not believe yourself beautiful." "I believe beauty matters less than what a person does with the life they are given." The villagers smiled again. To them the answer was humble. To Queen Lysandra it sounded like a challenge. The queen stepped closer. "You speak boldly for a poor village girl." Amara's smile faded. "I meant no disrespect." For a moment the square became strangely quiet. Then Queen Lysandra smiled. It was a beautiful smile, polished by years of court appearances. No one noticed that it never reached her eyes. "Of course not," she said. "Enjoy the festival." She continued walking. Music slowly returned to the square, and the villagers resumed their celebration. Amara watched the queen disappear into the crowd, unable to explain the uneasiness settling inside her chest. That evening, the festival continued beneath strings of lanterns. Amara helped her mother serve food before walking home alone along the edge of the village. The moon was only a thin silver curve above the trees, and the distant music grew softer with every step. She did not notice the royal carriage waiting beside the abandoned chapel. She did not see Queen Lysandra step into the road until it was too late. Amara stopped. "Your Majesty." The queen stood alone, though Amara sensed guards hidden among the trees. "I wish to speak with you without an audience," Lysandra said. Amara lowered her head. "Have I offended you?" "You have done something far worse." Amara looked up. The queen's calm expression had vanished. "You made me invisible." "I don't understand." "Everywhere I walked today they spoke of you, your kindness, your beauty, your precious heart." Lysandra's voice hardened with each word. "You stood in rags and still they looked at you as though you were royalty." "I never asked them to." "That is what makes it unbearable." Amara stepped backward. The air around them began to change. Leaves lifted from the ground, spinning slowly despite the absence of wind. A violet glow formed around the queen's fingers. Amara stared at it. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" "Giving this village something else to remember you for." Amara turned to run. The magic struck her before she took a second step. Pain tore through her body. She collapsed onto the road, crying out as violet light wrapped around her legs. Her bones twisted, her skin burned, the world blurred through tears as her legs fused together beneath her dress. "What have you done?" she gasped. The queen watched without flinching. Amara clawed at the earth as scales spread across her lower body, shimmering beneath the moonlight. Her feet vanished. Her legs lengthened into a thick, powerful tail that curled helplessly against the dirt. When the magic finally stopped, Amara lay trembling. From the waist up, she remained human. From the waist down, she had become something the villagers would call a monster. Queen Lysandra approached her slowly. "Let them admire you now." Amara looked down at the long serpent tail where her legs had once been. A broken sound escaped her throat. "Please," she whispered, "undo it." The queen crouched beside her. "No, my family has done nothing to you." "Then perhaps they will learn that loving someone beautiful can be dangerous." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" For the first time, Queen Lysandra's jealousy showed plainly across her face. "Because they loved you without being commanded." She rose and turned toward her carriage. Behind her, Amara tried to drag herself forward, but the unfamiliar weight of her transformed body sent her collapsing again. "Wait." The queen paused. Amara's voice shook. "Will I always be this way?" Queen Lysandra looked back at her. "For every day that remains to you." Then she entered her carriage and disappeared into the night. Amara lay alone on the road, listening to the distant festival music. Only hours earlier, the villagers had spoken her name with love. By morning, they would scream it in fear. Amara did not know how long she remained alone on the road. The festival music eventually faded. The lanterns in the village went dark one by one, and the moon slowly crossed the sky above her. She tried several times to move. Each attempt ended with her collapsing into the dirt. The serpent tail attached to her body was heavy and unfamiliar. Its dark scales caught the moonlight whenever she shifted, and every glimpse of it sent fresh panic through her. She kept reaching for legs that were no longer there. By the time the sky began to brighten, her voice was hoarse from crying for help. Then she heard someone calling her name. "Amara." Her father's voice echoed through the trees. She froze. Amara, where are you? Another voice followed, her mother, S. They were coming closer. Amara looked desperately toward the forest, but there was nowhere to hide. She dragged herself toward the side of the road, her new tail scraping through the mud behind her. Please, she whispered, don't let them see me. Footsteps rushed around the bend. Her father appeared first, carrying a lantern in one hand and a wooden staff in the other. Her mother followed close behind, clutching Amara's shawl to her chest. Relief crossed both of their faces when they saw her. Then they noticed the tail. Her mother stopped so suddenly that the shawl slipped from her hands. Her father raised the staff. Amara flinched. Papa, please. The sound of her voice made him stare. Her mother covered her mouth. Amara. Tears filled Amara's eyes. It's me. Her father's grip loosened around the staff, but he did not lower it completely. What happened to you? He asked. Amara tried to answer. The memory of Queen Lysandra's hand, surrounded by violet light, returned so clearly that Amara could almost feel the magic burning through her again. She cursed me. Who? The visiting queen. Her father stared at her in disbelief. Her mother slowly approached. Amara pulled away. Don't. Her mother stopped. I don't know what this curse will make me do, Amara said. You shouldn't come closer. Her mother's expression broke. You are my daughter. You don't know what I am now. I know exactly who you are. She moved forward again. This time Amara did not stop her. Her mother knelt in the dirt and wrapped both arms around her. Amara collapsed against her, crying harder than she had all night. Her father lowered the staff. For several moments he simply stood there, looking at what had been done to his child. Then anger replaced his shock. I will go to the palace. No, Amara grabbed his sleeve. She has already left, and even if she hasn't, you cannot confront her. She attacked you. She is a queen. And you are my daughter. If you accuse her without proof, they will imprison you. Her father looked toward the village, his face tight with helpless rage. We cannot leave you here. Together, her parents tried to help her move. It took time for Amara to understand how to control the muscles in her tail. At first, it seemed to move with a will of its own. It coiled when she became frightened and tightened whenever pain passed through her body. Her father placed one arm beneath her shoulders, while her mother guided the heavy tail away from rocks and roots. They had barely reached the edge of the village when the first person saw them. A young baker's apprentice was carrying flour toward the ovens. He stopped in the road, staring at Amara. The sack slipped from his arms. Flour burst across the stones. His scream woke half the village. Doors opened. Windows filled with faces. People rushed into the street, some carrying tools, others still dressed in their nightclothes. Amara saw recognition pass across their faces before fear replaced it. The flour seller she had helped the day before began to cry. A mother pulled her children behind her skirts. Someone shouted, "Keep it away." Amara recoiled. Her father stepped in front of her. She is not an it. The villagers formed a wide circle around the family. No one came close. Amara looked at faces she had known her entire life, people whose children she had cared for, people whose homes she had visited when they were sick, people who had praised her kindness only hours earlier. Now they stared at her as though none of it had ever happened. The village healer pushed through the crowd. She was an older woman named Mara, with silver hair braided down her back. She had known Amara since birth and had taught her how to identify herbs in the forest. Mara approached slowly. Amara, she said. A murmur spread through the crowd. You should not go near her, someone warned. The healer ignored them. She looked at Amara's face, then at the serpent body coiled behind her. Can you understand me? Amara swallowed, yes. Several people gasped. Mara crouched a few feet away. Do you feel an urge to harm anyone? No. Are you in pain? Yes. The healer nodded, as though Amara had answered any ordinary medical question. Then we will treat the pain first. A man near the well shook his head. You cannot bring that creature into the village. She is Amara, Mara said. She was Amara. Amara lowered her eyes. Her mother stood. She is still our daughter. And what happens when the curse takes her mind? Another villager asked. What happens when she enters our homes at night? She would never hurt anyone, the flower seller said through her tears. You don't know that. She has never harmed a soul. She never had a serpent's body before. The villagers began arguing among themselves. Some defended her. Others demanded that the family leave before the royal guards discovered what had happened. Amara listened until she could bear no more. Stop. Her voice was soft, but the crowd fell silent. She looked at them one by one. I understand why you are afraid. Her father turned toward her. Amara. They have children, families. She forced herself to continue. None of us knows what this curse will do to me. The healer's expression hardened. Fear does not make cruelty acceptable. No, Amara said, but I will not ask them to risk their lives while we search for an answer. Her mother shook her head. You are not leaving alone. Amara looked toward their small cottage at the end of the road. It had been her home since birth. She could see the window above her bed, the climbing roses her mother had planted, and the workshop where her father carved furniture late into the night. We may not have a choice, she whispered. Her father followed her gaze. Then he turned to the villagers. If my daughter is no longer welcome here, neither are we. Amara looked at him in shock. Papa knows. He ignored her. I built half the tables in your homes, he said. My wife has mended your clothing and cared for your children. Amara has given more to this village than anyone standing here. If fear has erased all of that, then there is nothing left for us. A few villagers lowered their heads. The flower seller stepped forward, but stopped when Amara's tail shifted across the stones. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable. Amara saw it. So did her father. By midday, the family had packed everything they could carry. No one forced them out. That almost made it worse. The villagers stood along the road in silence as Amara's father loaded blankets, tools, food, and clothing onto a wooden cart. Her mother walked beside Amara, helping her navigate the uneven ground. Some villagers cried. Some prayed. Others watched from behind closed doors. The healer gave them medicine and a bundle of herbs. The flower seller placed a basket of white lilies on the cart. I am sorry, she whispered. Amara looked at the woman who had once kissed her cheek in gratitude. I know. The family travelled beyond the farms, past the old stone bridge, and into a part of the kingdom most people avoided. Dense forests surrounded an abandoned hunting cottage that had once belonged to a noble family. Its roof leaked, the windows were broken, vines covered the walls. But it was hidden. Her father looked at the ruined house. We can repair it. Her mother took Amara's hand. We will make it a home. Amara stared into the forest. The trees were thick enough to conceal her from the road. No one would see her unless they came looking. That evening her father boarded the windows while her mother lit a fire inside. Amara rested near the hearth, exhausted and aching. She expected the darkness to make her fear worse. Instead, something strange happened. Moonlight entered through a gap in the boards and touched the scales along her tail. Warmth spread through her body. Amara gasped. Her mother rushed toward her. The scales began to glow. The heavy serpent body trembled, then slowly divided. Bones shifted. The tail shortened. And where dark scales had covered the floor, 2 human legs appeared beneath Amara's dress. For several seconds, no one moved. Amara stared down at herself. Then she stood. Her knees nearly gave way, but her father caught her. Her mother began to cry. Amara touched her legs, unable to believe they were real. The queen said it would last forever, she whispered. Her father looked toward the moonlight. Perhaps even queens do not understand every spell they cast. Amara stepped outside. The full moon hung above the trees, bright and enormous. For the first time since the curse, she felt the earth beneath human feet. She laughed through her tears. But as dawn approached, the warmth faded. The transformation returned. Her legs fused, scales spread across her skin, the serpent tail curled beneath her once more. Amara understood then. The curse had not been broken. It had only given her a few hours of freedom. And for the next several years, those moonlit hours would be the only time she was allowed to feel human again. Years passed. The abandoned hunting cottage slowly became a home. Amara's father repaired the roof, replaced the broken windows, and built new furniture from timber gathered in the forest. Her mother planted herbs near the doorway and filled the small rooms with woven blankets, candles, and dried flowers. From a distance, the cottage looked almost peaceful, but Amara rarely forgot why they lived there. By day, she remained trapped in the body the queen had given her. Her dark serpent tail had grown longer and stronger over the years, allowing her to move through the forest with far more ease than she had at first. She learned how to climb steep hills, cross shallow streams, and coil herself near the warmth of the hearth during winter. She also learned how quickly strangers could turn cruel when they were afraid. The villagers no longer came near the cottage. Still, signs of their affection occasionally appeared along the forest path. A loaf of bread wrapped in clean cloths, a basket of apples, medicine when her mother became ill, white lilies placed beneath an old oak tree. No one left a name. Amara understood. They had not stopped caring for her. They had simply allowed their fear to become stronger than their love. Her family visited the village only when necessary. Her father traded his woodwork for flour, salt, and lamp oil. Her mother sometimes returned with whispered news about people Amara had once known. Children she had cared for were now adults. Old neighbors had died. The flower seller still asked about her. Amara listened without speaking. The village felt like a life that had belonged to someone else. Only the full moon returned that life to her. Once each month, when the moon reached its brightest point, warmth spread through the scales of her tail. The curse loosened its hold, and for a few precious hours Amara became fully human again. Those nights belonged only to her. She would put on one of the dresses her mother had carefully preserved, leave the cottage, and walk barefoot through the forest. She wandered beside the lake, gathered wildflowers, and danced beneath the trees when no one was watching. Sometimes she stood at the edge of the water and studied her reflection. She was older now. The frightened village girl had become a woman. Her face had softened with time, but sorrow lived behind her eyes. She wondered what kind of life she might have had if Queen Lysandra had never entered the village. Perhaps she would have married. Perhaps she would have had children. Perhaps she would still walk through the market without people screaming. She tried not to imagine it for too long. That night, the full moon hung above the lake like a silver lantern. Amara sat at the water's edge wearing a pale blue dress her mother had sewn from an old bolt of fabric. Her dark hair fell loose down her back, and a small crown of white flowers rested upon her head. She dipped her feet into the water. The simple sensation made her smile. She had learned never to waste these hours grieving. She closed her eyes and listened to the forest. The wind moved through the leaves. An owl called from somewhere beyond the trees. Then a horse stepped onto a branch. The sharp crack made Amara turn. A man stood at the edge of the clearing. He wore a dark riding cloak over deep blue clothing, and a sword rested at his side. His horse waited behind him, breathing heavily after the journey. Even before she saw the gold stitched along his collar, Amara recognized him. King Rowan. She had seen him only once, many years earlier, during a procession through the village. He had been younger then, newly crowned and surrounded by guards. Now he stood alone beneath the trees. Amara rose immediately. "Your Majesty." The king's surprise deepened. You know who I am. Everyone in this kingdom knows your face. He looked toward the cottage hidden beyond the trees, then back at her. I was told no one lived this far into the forest. People say many things about this forest. And what do they say about you? Amara's body tensed. Nothing kind. The king stepped closer, though he kept a respectful distance. He appeared to be in his early 30s, with dark hair that curled near his collar and tired eyes that seemed too observant to belong to a careless man. He looked at her with curiosity, but not recognition. He did not know who she was. That should have comforted her. Instead, it made her more nervous. "What brings you here alone?" she asked. "My horse threw a shoe farther down the road. I followed the light from your cottage." "You should return before your guards notice you are missing." A faint smile appeared on his face. "They noticed long ago." Amara almost smiled in return but stopped herself. The king's gaze moved toward the flowers in her hair. "Do you live here with your family?" "Yes." "Why so far from the village?" Her expression changed. King Rowan noticed. "You do not have to answer." Amara looked toward the moon. She had already stayed outside longer than she intended. The warmth beneath her skin had begun to weaken. Fear moved through her. "You need to leave." The king frowned. "Have I offended you?" "No." "Then why?" "Please." Her voice was sharper than she meant it to be. He studied her face. Amara took a step backward. Pain tightened in her legs. It had begun. She gripped the side of her dress. The king noticed. "Are you hurt?" "Go." Her knees gave way. She fell beside the lake. King Rowan moved toward her, but she raised one hand. "Do not come closer." The moonlight dimmed behind a passing cloud. Pain burned through her body. Amara gasped as scales appeared along her legs. The king stopped. He watched as her feet pressed together, her knees fused, and the fabric of her dress tore beneath the force of the transformation. Her human legs disappeared. A long, dark serpent tail stretched across the grass. Amara collapsed against the ground, breathing hard. Silence filled the clearing. She could not bring herself to look at him. She waited for the familiar reaction. A scream. A sword leaving its sheath. The sound of someone running. None came. When she finally looked up, the king remained where he stood. His hand was near his sword, but he had not drawn it. His face showed shock. Not disgust. Not hatred. Only disbelief. "You saw," Amara whispered. "Yes." Her tail coiled instinctively beneath her. "You should be afraid." "Should I?" "Everyone else is." The king's gaze moved from her face to the scales, covering the lower half of her body. "Did you choose this?" Amara stared at him. "No." "Then why should I fear you for something done against your will?" She had no answer. No one outside her family had ever asked her that. The king slowly lowered his hand from his sword. "Who did this to you?" Amara looked toward the cottage. Her mother's candle still burned in the window. "I cannot tell you." "You cannot or you will not." "Both." King Rowan took one careful step closer. Amara's tail tightened. He stopped immediately. "I will not touch you. You should not be here. You have said that several times. And yet you are still standing there." His expression softened. "I suppose I am." For one strange moment, neither of them spoke. Then voices echoed through the trees. "Your Majesty." The king's guards were approaching. Amara's fear returned. "You must go." He looked toward the voices, then back at her. "Will I see you again?" "No." The answer came too quickly. The king noticed. Then perhaps you should have said it more convincingly. Before she could respond, he turned toward his horse. Amara watched him leave the clearing just as lanterns appeared between the trees. She remained hidden near the lake until the voices faded. Only then did she return to the cottage. Her parents were waiting. Her mother looked at her torn dress. What happened? Amara glanced back through the open doorway. The king found me. Her father went still. Did he hurt you? No. Did he threaten you? No. Her mother studied her face. What did he do? Amara looked down at the scales covering her tail. He stayed. Far beyond the forest, King Rowan rode back toward the palace surrounded by worried guards. He barely heard their questions. His mind remained beside the moonlit lake. With the mysterious woman. With the sorrow in her eyes. With the impossible transformation he had witnessed. And before the palace towers came into view, the king had already decided that he would return. King Rowan returned the following morning. Amara's father spotted him first. He was outside repairing a loose section of the fence when a dark horse appeared between the trees. The rider wore a plain traveling cloak, but there was no mistaking the man beneath it. Amara's father dropped the hammer. Inside, he called sharply. Amara looked up from the herbs she was sorting near the doorway. Her mother stepped onto the porch and followed her husband's stare. The king dismounted several yards from the cottage. He had come alone. That did little to comfort them. Amara's father moved in front of his family. You should not be here, Your Majesty. King Rowan tied his horse to a tree. I was told the same thing last night. Amara felt heat rise to her face. Her mother glanced at her. You spoke with him. Only briefly. Her father looked from Amara to the king, clearly alarmed. Rowan kept his hands visible as he approached. I have not come to harm anyone. That is what powerful people say before they decide what should become of families like ours, her father replied. The king stopped. Amara had never heard anyone speak to royalty that way. She expected anger. Instead, Rowan lowered his head slightly. You have reason not to trust me. You know nothing about our reasons. I know someone placed a curse upon your daughter. The family went still. Amara's father looked at her again. You told him. He saw me transform. Her mother's face tightened with fear. The king noticed. I have told no one. And why should we believe you? Her father asked. Because if I intended to expose her, I would not have returned alone. That answer did not satisfy him, but it quieted him. Rowan looked toward Amara. In the daylight, there was no moonlight to hide what she had become. Her dark serpent tail curved across the ground beside her, its scales reflecting shades of black, blue, and silver. Amara waited for his expression to change. It did not. He looked at her exactly as he had beneath the moon. As though she were a person standing before him, not a creature to be examined. That unsettled her more than fear would have. What do you want? She asked. The truth. Her father stepped forward. The truth could start a war. Rowan's expression sharpened. With whom? No one answered. The silence told him enough. This was done by someone beyond my kingdom, he said. Amara's mother took her daughter's hand. The king looked at each of them. I cannot help you unless I know what happened. We did not ask for your help, Amara said. No. His answer was calm. But you should not have needed to. Something in his voice made her pause. He looked toward the cottage. May I come inside? Her father almost laughed. No. Rowan nodded once. Then I will remain here. He removed his cloak, folded it over a tree stump, and sat upon a fallen log near the fence. Amara stared at him. What are you doing? Waiting. For what? For one of you to decide I am worth speaking to." Her father muttered something under his breath and returned to the fence. The king remained. An hour passed. He did not complain. He did not demand food, water, or royal courtesy. He simply watched Amara's father work and occasionally moved out of the way when wood was carried past him. Amara tried to ignore him. She returned to her herbs, separating dried leaves into small cloth bundles, yet each time she glanced up he was still there. Her mother eventually brought out a cup of water. Her father frowned at her. "He is still our king," she whispered. Rowan accepted the cup with both hands. "Thank you." He drank and returned it. Another hour passed. At last, Amara's father threw down his hammer. "You are either patient or foolish. I have been called both. You will not enter our home. I understand. You will not bring soldiers here. I will not. You will not speak of my daughter to anyone." Rowan's gaze moved toward Amara. "I give you my word." Her father folded his arms. And what is the word of a king worth when another royal has already destroyed her life? The question hung heavily between them. Rowan did not defend himself. "Perhaps nothing yet," he said, "but I can try to make it worth something." Amara's father studied him for a long moment. Then he pointed toward the porch. "You may sit there." It was not an invitation into the family, but it was a beginning. Rowan took his place at the edge of the porch while Amara remained near the garden. Her mother continued working inside, though she kept the door open. Her father stood nearby. No one relaxed. The king looked toward Amara. "What is your name?" She hesitated. He had seen her at her most vulnerable, yet somehow he did not even know that. Amara veiled. "Amara," he repeated. The sound of her name in his voice felt strangely intimate. She looked away. "And yours is Rowan," she said, "unless kings prefer to be addressed by their titles even while sitting on broken porches." A surprised smile appeared on his face. Her father tried not to react. Amara immediately regretted the remark. "I apologize." "Don't." Rowan leaned back slightly. "It has been years since anyone spoke to me without first rehearsing the words. Perhaps they are afraid of being imprisoned." "Perhaps." Amara studied him. There was tiredness behind his humor. He looked younger without the crown and royal procession, but lonelier too. "What were you doing in the forest last night?" she asked. "Escaping a council meeting." Her father stared at him. "You abandoned the government of the kingdom." "For 1 hour. That is still abandonment." Rowan nodded gravely. "I see I have found the man who should lead my council." Amara's mother laughed from inside the cottage, before quickly covering it with a cough. The tension softened. Only slightly. Rowan turned back to Amara. "How long have you lived here?" 7 years. His expression changed. "You have been cursed for 7 years." "Yes." "And no one brought this matter before the crown." "My father tried." Her father's jaw tightened. "I travelled to the palace 3 times. I never made it beyond the outer office. They said the king could not be troubled by village superstitions." Rowan looked ashamed. "I never heard of it." "That does not mean it did not happen," Amara said. "No, it means the people around me decided what was important before I had the chance." He looked toward the distant trees. "That is not an excuse." Amara had expected him to defend the palace. Instead, he accepted the failure as his own. That frightened her in a different way. It made him harder to dismiss. Rowan asked no more questions about the curse that day. He spoke with her father about the condition of the forest roads. He listened while her mother described the medicine they could no longer obtain easily. He helped lift a fallen beam near the side of the cottage, despite ruining the sleeves of his expensive shirt. Amara watched all of it from a distance. She told herself it meant nothing. Kings could be charming when they wanted something. Queens could smile before destroying a life. By late afternoon, Rowan prepared to leave. Her father walked him to his horse. "You have heard enough," he said. "Do not return." The king glanced toward Amara. She stood beneath the porch roof, one hand resting against the wooden post. "I have not heard nearly enough." Her father's expression hardened. Rowan mounted his horse. "I will keep my promise. No soldiers, no questions asked elsewhere, no one will learn where she lives." "And yet you still intend to return?" "Yes." "Why?" Rowan looked toward Amara again. "Because 7 years is a long time to be forgotten." Then he rode into the trees. Amara remained outside until the sound of his horse disappeared. Her father approached her. "You must be careful." "I know. He is a king." "I know that too. Royal people do not enter our lives without taking something." Amara looked toward the path Rowan had followed. The warning should have strengthened the walls she had built around herself. Instead, she remembered the way he had sat for hours without making a demand. The way he had looked at her serpent form without turning away. And the shame in his face when he learned that her father had once begged the palace for help. That evening, Amara found something resting on the porch. It was a book. The leather cover was worn but beautiful, and a small piece of paper had been tucked between the pages. She unfolded it. There were only a few words written inside. "For the years the village library kept from you." Amara ran her fingers over the writing. Her mother watched from the doorway. "You do not have to trust him," she said gently. "I don't." But Amara carried the book inside. 3 days later, King Rowan returned. This time he brought no royal cloak, no guards, and no visible sign of his rank, except for the quality of his horse and the sword at his side. Amara saw him through the cottage window before he reached the gate. Her father was outside splitting wood. Her mother was kneading bread at the kitchen table. Amara closed the book Rowan had left for her and rested one hand on its leather cover. "He's here again," she said. Her father stopped mid-swing. Her mother looked toward the window. Rowan dismounted near the same tree as before. A cloth bag hung from one shoulder, and he carried a small wooden crate in both hands. Amara's father planted the axe into the chopping block. "You were told not to return." "I remember. And yet here you are." Rowan placed the crate on the ground. "I brought medicine, lamp oil and flour." "We are not beggars." "I did not say you were." "Then take it back." Rowan glanced toward the cottage. Amara stood inside the doorway, partly hidden by the shadows. "The medicine is for your wife," he said. "The palace physician says it may ease the pain in her hands." Her mother went still. Amara looked at her. For months her mother's fingers had swollen whenever the weather turned cold. She rarely complained, but Amara had noticed how often she dropped needles and cups. Her father's expression remained hard. "How did you know?" "Your wife mentioned that the village apothecary no longer carries what she needs." "You remembered that?" "Yes." Rowan looked toward Amara again. "I remember most things people tell me when they are speaking honestly." Amara stepped outside. Her serpent tail moved quietly across the wooden porch. "You should not bring gifts every time you come," she said. "Would you prefer that I arrive empty-handed?" "I would prefer that you stop trying to earn our trust with things." Rowan accepted the criticism without argument. "Then consider this repayment." "For what?" "For 7 years of being ignored by the crown." Amara's father crossed his arms. "No amount of flour will repay that." "No," Rowan said, "but your family still needs to eat while I determine how such a thing was allowed to happen." Amara studied him carefully. "You said you would not investigate elsewhere." "I said I would not expose you or reveal where you live." "That is not the same promise." "No." His honesty irritated her. She expected him to hide behind carefully chosen words. Instead, he admitted exactly what he intended. Her father stepped closer. "What have you done?" "I reviewed the petitions submitted to the palace 7 years ago." Amara's father stared at him. "And your requests were recorded. Then someone read them." "Someone did." The king's jaw tightened. They were marked as unverified superstition and closed before they ever reached the royal council. Amara saw the anger he was trying to control. "Who closed them?" she asked. "I do not know yet." Her father gave a bitter laugh. "You are the king." "Yes." "And still you do not know what happens inside your own palace." Rowan looked at him directly. "That is becoming painfully clear." Silence settled over the yard. Amara's mother finally came outside. She wiped flour from her hands and examined the medicine in the crate. "What is in it?" Rowan described the mixture and the physician who had prepared it. She nodded slowly. "I know that physician's name." Her husband looked at her. "We should not accept it. We should not waste something useful because we dislike the person carrying it." Rowan almost smiled. Amara's mother picked up the medicine and carried it inside. Her father sighed heavily. "That does not mean you are welcome." "I understand." But once again, Rowan remained. This time he did not spend the morning waiting in silence. He helped Amara's father repair the fence, though he handled the tools like a man who had been taught swordsmanship instead of carpentry. He struck his thumb twice and split one board down the center. Amara watched from the garden. "You are making it worse," she said. Rowan looked down at the crooked plank. "I was beginning to suspect that." Her father took the hammer from him. "A king should know when to surrender. A king should know many things. You seem to be learning slowly." Rowan laughed. Amara tried not to. He noticed anyway. "What?" "Nothing." "You smiled." "I did not." "You did." Her father pointed toward a pile of cut wood. "Carry those if you need to feel useful." Rowan obeyed. By noon, his fine shirt was damp with sweat and streaked with dirt. Amara found it strange to see a king working beside her father as though he were an ordinary visitor. Stranger still was the ease with which he accepted correction. At the palace, every person around him likely praised even his mistakes. Here, her father told him plainly when he was useless. After the work was finished, Amara's mother set out bread, cheese, and vegetable stew. Rowan attempted to refuse the meal, but she placed a bowl in front of him. "You worked badly," she said, "but you still worked." Amara lowered her head to hide her smile. Rowan looked toward her. "You heard that." "I believe everyone in the forest heard it." They ate outside beneath the shade of an old tree. For the first time, Amara's father allowed Rowan to sit at the table with them. The king asked about the cottage and how they had survived during their first winter. Her father explained how they had patched the roof with bark and slept beside one another near the hearth. Her mother spoke about learning which plants grew in the surrounding forest. Amara said little. She watched Rowan listen. He did not interrupt. He did not turn their hardship into a speech about his own guilt. He simply let them tell the truth. When the meal ended, he reached for the empty bowls. Her mother stared at him. "What are you doing?" "Helping." "You are going to break them." "That seems unfair." "You broke 2 fence boards. Wood and pottery are entirely different." She took the bowls from him. "Sit down, Your Majesty." Amara laughed before she could stop herself. Rowan turned toward her. This time she did not deny it. His expression softened. For one brief moment, she forgot to be afraid of him. That frightened her enough to make her rise from the table. "I need to gather herbs." "I can come with you," Rowan said. "No." The answer was immediate. He hesitated. Of course. Amara moved toward the forest path, angry with herself for the relief she saw disappear from his face. She had not meant to hurt him, but allowing him to walk beside her felt too personal, too dangerous. Her father's warning returned to her. Royal people did not enter their lives without taking something. Amara had already lost her home, her future, and 7 years of freedom because one queen had noticed her. She could not afford to forget that because a king carried firewood and made her laugh. She spent nearly an hour gathering wild mint and feverfew before returning. Rowan was preparing to leave. He had placed another book on the porch. Amara stared at it. You said you would not bring gifts. It is not a gift. What is it? A loan. You expect me to return it. Eventually. Her father shook his head. He intends to keep coming. Rowan mounted his horse. I prefer to think of it as encouraging responsible borrowing. Amara stepped closer to the book. What is it about? Travels beyond the northern mountains. She looked at him. I have never been beyond this forest. I know. The simple answer carried no pity, only understanding. He touched 2 fingers to his brow in farewell and rode away. Amara waited until he disappeared before opening the book. Inside, she found detailed drawings of distant cities, oceans, snow-covered palaces and deserts filled with ruins. Places she would likely never see. That night she read until the candle burned low. Rowan returned the following week. Then again 6 days later. Soon his visits became part of the rhythm of the cottage. Sometimes he brought books, sometimes he brought news from the kingdom. Once he arrived with a bundle of rare herbs and proudly announced that he had remembered every name Amara had mentioned. Half of them were wrong. She corrected him while trying not to laugh. He began helping her father with repairs, though no one trusted him with anything delicate. He listened to her mother's stories and learned that she could defeat him easily at cards. He also began spending more time with Amara. At first they spoke only when her parents were nearby. Then they started walking short distances around the cottage grounds. Rowan never asked to enter the deeper forest with her. He seemed to understand that some spaces still belonged only to her. He asked about the books she read. She asked about the decisions he made as king. Their conversations were not always gentle. When he complained about nobles resisting a new grain tax, Amara told him the tax would harm the poorest families first. He argued that the kingdom needed money to repair the roads. Then tax the people who own the carriages using them, she said. Rowan stared at her. What? Nothing. You disagree. I am wondering why none of my advisors said that. Perhaps because they own the carriages. A week later he returned and told her the proposal had been changed. Amara looked at him in surprise. You listened to me. You were right. Kings admit that. Rarely. She smiled. As summer deepened, Rowan's visits grew longer. Amara began recognizing the sound of his horse before she saw him through the trees. She began wondering whether he would come. That was the first sign of danger. The second came when he missed a week. Amara told herself she did not care. He was a king. He had duties, councils, disputes, and an entire kingdom demanding his attention. Still, each time she heard hoofbeats in the distance, she looked toward the path. By the 9th day, she was angry with herself. By the 10th, Rowan appeared. His face was pale, and one arm was bound beneath his cloak. Amara moved toward him before she could think. What happened? A hunting accident. Her father examined the blood-stained bandage. That is not from a hunting accident. Rowan sighed. An assassin. Amara's mother hurried inside for clean cloth and water. Amara stared at him. You were attacked. It was handled. You should be at the palace. The physician ordered me to rest. And you came here? Yes. Why? He looked at her as though the answer should have been obvious. Because this is the only place where no one asks me to pretend I am unhurt. Amara's anger disappeared. Her father helped him inside the cottage for the first time. Rowan sat near the hearth while Amara's mother changed the bandage. The wound was deep but clean, running across the upper part of his arm. Amara remained beside him. He watched her expression. You look frightened. I am not. You are. You could have died. The words escaped before she could stop them. Something changed in his face. Amara looked away. Her mother finished wrapping the wound and ordered him to remain still. Her father went outside to care for Rowan's horse. For a few moments, Amara and the king were alone. You noticed I was gone, he said. I noticed the books were quieter. That is a terrible lie. I have had little practice. Rowan smiled, but pain crossed his face. Amara knelt beside the chair. You should not have travelled with that wound. I needed somewhere peaceful. You have an entire palace. Exactly. She looked at him. The king's eyes were tired, stripped of the confidence he wore during his earlier visits. For the first time, Amara saw how much of his life was performance. He was expected to be calm when threatened, certain when confused, and strong even while bleeding. Here he could simply be Rowan. She reached toward his injured arm, then stopped before touching him. He noticed. You may. Amara rested her hand gently over his. His fingers closed around hers. Neither of them spoke. The contact lasted only a few seconds, but it felt more dangerous than any curse. Amara pulled away. You should rest. Rowan studied her face. Amara. She rose too quickly. I will prepare the spare room. Her heart beat violently as she left him near the fire. That night, Rowan slept beneath her family's roof. Amara remained awake in the next room, staring at the ceiling. She could no longer tell herself that he was merely curious. And she could no longer pretend that his visits meant nothing to her. That realization terrified her. Because the last royal person who had taken notice of Amara had destroyed her life. And this time, Amara was beginning to give a king the power to break her heart. King Rowan remained at the cottage for 3 days while his wound healed. At first, Amara tried to keep her distance. She brought him water when her mother asked. She changed the herbs beneath his bandage. She answered his questions politely and left whenever the silence between them became too intimate. But avoiding him was difficult beneath the same roof. The cottage was small. Every room carried the sound of his voice, the scrape of his chair, or the quiet laughter he shared with her parents. Rowan did not behave like a guest who expected to be served. When he was strong enough to stand, he insisted on helping with small tasks. Amara's father refused to let him touch the fence again, so Rowan carried firewood, swept the floor, and peeled vegetables beneath her mother's strict supervision. On the second evening, Amara found him standing near the window. Moonlight stretched across the floor, though the moon was not yet full enough to release her from the curse. His injured arm remained bound against his chest. You should be resting, she said. I have rested more in 2 days than I have in 2 years. That is not the same as healing. He glanced toward her. You sound like your mother. She is usually right. I have noticed. Amara moved toward the table and began sorting dried herbs into small jars. Rowan watched her for a moment. Does the transformation hurt every time? Her hands stopped. He immediately lowered his gaze. You do not have to answer. Amara placed another bundle of leaves into a jar. Yes. Rowan looked at her again. The first time was the worst, she continued. I did not understand what was happening. Now I know what to expect. That does not make it painless. No. He stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. And the full moon. That hurts too, less than the change back. How long do you remain human? Only a few hours. And you have lived this way for 7 years. Amara closed the jar. Yes. Rowan's expression darkened. She recognized the anger in him now. It did not frighten her because it was never directed toward her. Do not look at me like that, she said. Like what? As though my life is only a tragedy. I do not. You do. Rowan considered her words. Then tell me what I am missing. Amara looked around the cottage. My father rebuilt this home with his own hands. My mother taught me which plants grow best beneath the trees. We have survived winters that should have driven us out of the forest. She gestured toward the shelves of books he had helped fill. I heal injured animals. I know every path between here and the northern ridge. My life became smaller, but it did not end. Rowan listened without interrupting. I do not want you to see only what was taken from me, she said. That gives the Queen too much power. His voice softened. Then I will try to see what you built afterward. Amara met his eyes. For once there was no pity in them. Only respect. The quiet stretched between them until her mother called from the next room, asking Amara to bring more candles. Amara turned away too quickly. She could still feel Rowan watching her. The next morning he prepared to return to the palace. His horse had been cared for, his wound freshly wrapped, and his colour had improved. Amara's father stood beside the gate while Rowan fastened his cloak. You should travel with guards, her father said. If I arrive with guards, people will ask where I have been. They may ask anyway. They already do. Rowan looked toward Amara. She stood on the porch with her mother. I will return when I can. Amara folded her arms. You should probably survive the journey first. A smile touched his face. That almost sounded like concern. It was practical advice. Of course. He mounted his horse. Before leaving, he leaned toward her father and spoke quietly. I need to ask you something. Her father's expression changed. What? Will you come to the village with me when I return? Amara moved closer. Why? Rowan looked at her. Because I want to hear what the villagers remember. Her father's shoulders stiffened. They remember enough to be ashamed. That may be useful. Useful to whom? To Amara. She studied him. You said you would not reveal where I live. I will not. What are you planning? I do not yet know. That is not reassuring. No, Rowan admitted, but I cannot confront the person responsible with only a story and no witnesses. Amara's mother stepped beside her. The Queen returned to her own kingdom years ago. Then I will need more than anger before I accuse her. Amara felt the old fear returning. You intend to bring her back? Not yet. But eventually. If the evidence leads to her. Amara stared at him. The name of Queen Lysandra had remained unspoken outside the family for 7 years. Saying it aloud had always felt dangerous, as though the Queen might somehow hear them from across the border. Now Rowan spoke as though the truth could be dragged into the light. Amara did not know whether that filled her with hope or terror. Do not promise me freedom, she said. I have not. Good. Her voice trembled despite her effort to control it. Because I have survived this curse, I do not know whether I could survive believing it might end and then losing that hope. Rowan dismounted. He crossed the yard until only the gate stood between them. I will not make promises I cannot keep, he said, but I will not pretend nothing can be done simply because everyone before me was too afraid to try. Amara's eyes burned. He rested one hand against the wooden gate. She almost reached for it. Almost. Then her father opened the gate and stepped between them. You should leave before daylight fades. Rowan accepted the dismissal. As he rode away, Amara remained near the fence until the trees concealed him. Her mother touched her shoulder. "You are frightened." "Yes, of the queen." Amara looked toward the empty path. Not only her. Several days passed before Rowan returned. This time he arrived shortly after sunrise with plain clothing folded inside his saddlebags. He changed in the storage shed, trading his embroidered coat for a simple brown tunic, dark trousers and a worn traveling cloak. Without royal clothing, he looked less like a king and more like a merchant or landowner. Amara's father examined him. "You still stand like someone who expects people to move aside." Rowan adjusted the cloak. "How should I stand? Less importantly, I will do my best." Amara's mother covered a smile. Amara watched from the porch. "You cannot simply walk into the village," she said. "No one there has seen me closely in years. Someone may recognize you. Then we will leave." Her father looked toward Amara. "You do not have to come." She knew that. The village existed only a few miles away, yet she had not crossed its boundary since the day they were forced to leave. She imagined the narrow roads, the market square, and the cottage where she had once slept. She imagined the villagers seeing her serpent body. Her stomach tightened. "I will stay here," she said. Rowan looked disappointed but did not argue. "I will tell you everything." Amara nodded. Her father climbed onto the small wooden cart, and Rowan sat beside him. Before they left, Rowan glanced back at her. She lifted one hand in farewell. The journey to Belava took less than an hour. The village had changed. New buildings stood near the market. The old fountain had been repaired. Children ran through streets that Amara's father remembered as quieter. Yet the carpenter's cottage at the end of the road remained empty. Its windows were boarded, and weeds covered the garden. Rowan noticed him staring. Why did no one take the house? No one wanted to live where the serpent girl had lived. The answer was bitter. They left the cart beside the smithy and entered the market on foot. Several villagers greeted Amara's father cautiously. Some appeared pleased to see him. Others looked toward the road behind him, as though expecting Amara to follow. An elderly woman hurried from a flower stall. The same flower seller who had once placed lilies on the family's cart now moved with the aid of a cane. She embraced Amara's father. "How is she?" "She is alive." The woman closed her eyes. "Does she still hate us?" "She never hated you." That answer seemed to wound her more deeply. Rowan stood nearby, listening. The flower seller noticed him. "Who is your companion?" A man trying to understand what happened. She studied Rowan's face but did not recognize him. "What do you want to know?" "Tell me about Amara before the curse." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "She was the kindest child I ever knew. Not merely beautiful." "Oh, she was beautiful, everyone saw that, but beauty was not why we loved her." She touched the flowers arranged across her stall. "She helped me every market day after my husband died, never accepted payment. She said the flowers made the village happier." Rowan glanced at Amara's father. "And after the transformation?" The woman lowered her eyes. "We were afraid." "Had she harmed anyone?" "No." "Threatened anyone?" "No." "Then what did you fear?" The flower seller struggled to answer. "What she might become." Rowan's voice remained calm. "And what did she become?" The woman looked toward the abandoned cottage. "Someone we abandoned." More villagers gathered as word spread that Amara's father had returned. The baker remembered Amara delivering bread to families who could not afford it. A farmer recalled her caring for his children when his wife was ill. The healer Mara, now older and slower, described examining Amara the morning after the curse. "She was frightened," Mara said. "That was all, frightened and in pain." Did you see evidence of magic? Rowan asked. Violet burns across her skin. They faded after several days. Have you seen magic like that before? Mara hesitated. Once. Amara's father turned sharply toward her. You never told us that. I was afraid. Of what? The Queen. The market became silent. Rowan stepped closer. What did you see? Mara looked around at the watching villagers. During the Festival of Peace, I treated one of Queen Lysandra's attendants for a burn. The wound carried the same violet mark. Rowan's expression changed. Was the attendant cursed? No, she said the Queen had lost her temper during an argument. Did anyone else know? The attendant begged me not to speak. She said Lysandra punished disloyalty. Amara's father's hands curled into fists. You knew the Queen had that magic. I suspected, I did not know for certain. You let us leave. Tears appeared in Mara's eyes. Yes. The villagers lowered their heads. Rowan looked across the market. Did anyone see Queen Lysandra near Amara on the night of the curse? For several seconds no one answered. Then a man at the edge of the crowd raised one trembling hand. He was the baker's apprentice who had screamed when he first saw Amara transformed. He was older now, with flour still dusting his sleeves. I saw the royal carriage. Amara's father stared at him. Where's? Near the abandoned chapel. Why did you never say this? The baker swallowed. The Queen's guards saw me. One warned me that accusing royalty was treason. Rowan moved toward him. What time was this? Near midnight. Did you see Amara? No, but I heard someone crying after the carriage left. A murmur passed through the villagers. The flower seller began to weep. We all knew enough, she whispered. Not everything, but enough to ask questions. And you did not, Rowan said. No one defended themselves. An older man finally spoke. We were frightened of the Queen. Rowan looked around the market. And so you became frightened of the person she harmed instead. The words settled over them. Amara's father turned away. He had waited 7 years to hear someone in authority acknowledge what had happened. It brought him no comfort. The king spent the rest of the day collecting names, dates, and testimonies. He wrote nothing down where others could see, committing details to memory until he could record them privately. Before leaving, the flower seller handed Amara's father a bundle of white lilies. For her, he accepted them. She still remembers you. The woman's face crumpled. That is more kindness than we deserve. When Rowan and Amara's father returned to the cottage, the sun was setting. Amara waited near the gate. She saw the flowers first. Her expression softened. Who sent them? The flower seller, her father said. Amara touched one of the white petals. She is still alive. She asks about you. Amara carried the flowers toward the porch. Rowan followed at a distance. What did they say? She asked. Her father told her. He spoke of the baker, the healer, and the carriage seen near the chapel. He described the villagers, shame, and the way they had gathered to remember every act of kindness Amara had once shown them. She listened silently. When he finished, Amara sat beside the porch steps. They remembered. They never forgot, Rowan said. She looked at him. They still left. Yes. He did not try to excuse them. Amara lowered her eyes to the lilies in her hands. Do you believe us now? I believed you before I went. Then why did you need them? Because belief and proof are not the same. Rowan sat several feet away. Their testimony connects Lysandra's magic, her carriage, her threats, and the timing of the curse. It is not enough yet, but it is a beginning. Amara's father entered the cottage, leaving them alone. Amara looked toward the darkening forest. What happens when you have enough? I confront her. She is a queen in another kingdom. Yes, she may deny everything. She probably will. She may threaten war. Rowan's expression remained steady. Then I will remind her that she entered my kingdom as a guest and used forbidden magic against one of my people. Amara's breath caught. One of my people's. No ruler had ever claimed responsibility for her before. Rowan turned toward her. But I will not proceed without your consent. She stared at him. You would stop. If you ask me to. Even after everything you learned. This is your life, your family, your curse. Amara searched his face for some hidden condition. There was none. You would truly let me decide. Yes. The answer frightened her almost as much as the Queen did. For years every choice had been made for her. The Queen had changed her body. The villagers had decided she was dangerous. Isolation had determined where she lived and what kind of future she could imagine. Now a king was placing the decision back into her hands. Amara looked at the lilies. I need time. Take it. Rowan rose. As he passed, Amara reached for his hand. He stopped. Her fingers closed around his. I am afraid, she admitted. Rowan turned toward her. So am I. She looked up, surprised. You. Lysandra is powerful. Her kingdom is wealthy. If I accuse her publicly, there may be consequences I cannot control. Then why continue? His thumb moved gently across her knuckles. Because fear already stole 7 years from you. Amara's heart tightened. Rowan lifted her hand, but he did not kiss it. He simply held it as though it were something precious that he had no right to claim. I do not want it to take the rest of your life. Amara stepped closer. For one suspended moment, she thought he might kiss her. She wanted him to. That realization sent panic through her. She pulled her hand away. Rowan's expression fell, though he tried to hide it. I'm sorry, she whispered. You have nothing to apologize for. He stepped back, giving her the space she needed. But Amara could not forget the warmth of his hand. That night, she stood beneath the rising moon with the white lilies beside her bed. She knew what the villagers remembered. She knew the king believed her. And for the first time since the curse began, the possibility of freedom no longer felt impossible. It felt close enough to hope for. That made it more dangerous than ever. For 3 days, Amara avoided answering Rowan's question. Each morning, she woke with the same thought. If she gave him permission to confront Queen Lysandra, she might finally be free. Or she might lose everything. The foreign queen had once destroyed her life over a few whispered compliments. What would Lysandra do if a king publicly accused her of forbidden magic? Amara imagined soldiers crossing the border. She imagined her parents being dragged from their cottage. She imagined Rowan standing before an army because of her. Hope had always seemed beautiful from a distance. Now that it was within reach, it felt sharp enough to wound everyone she loved. Rowan did not pressure her. He returned to the palace and sent no letters asking for an answer. He did not appear at the cottage unannounced. For the first time in months, the forest path remained empty. Amara told herself she was relieved. By the 4th day, she was standing at the gate every time she heard hoofbeats. On the 5th morning, her mother found her there. He said he would give you time, she said. I know. Then why do you look offended that he is keeping his word? Amara turned away from the road. I am not offended. Her mother raised one eyebrow. Amara sighed. He may decide it is easier to leave this alone. Do you believe that? No. Then what are you truly afraid of? Amara looked toward the cottage, where her father was repairing the frame around one of the windows. That he will continue. Her mother stepped beside her. And succeed. Amara did not answer. For 7 years, she had learned how to survive disappointment before it reached her. She had stopped imagining marriage, children, travel, and a life beyond the forest, because wanting those things had hurt too much. But freedom would force her to want again. It would force her to become someone other than the serpent woman hidden in the woods. "I don't know who I am without the curse," she admitted. Her mother took her hand. "You were Amara before it. I was 19. And you are still Amara now." "No," she shook her head. That girl trusted people. She believed kindness protected good hearts. She thought royalty meant honor. Her mother's expression softened. "She was younger. She was foolish. She was innocent. That is not the same thing." Amara looked down at the dark scales, covering the lower half of her body. "What if the curse is broken and I still feel like this? Then you will heal slowly. What if Rowan sees me free and realizes he only cared because I needed saving?" Her mother was quiet for a moment. "That is not truly what you believe." Amara's eyes filled. "No. What do you believe?" "That he loves me." It was the first time she had said the words aloud. Her mother squeezed her hand. "And that frightens you more than the queen?" "Yes, because hatred was familiar. Love asked her to become vulnerable." That evening, Amara asked her father to send word to the palace. 2 days later, Rowan returned. He arrived shortly before sunset, alone as always. The moment he stepped through the gate, Amara knew he understood why she had called for him. Her parents left them outside together. Rowan stood near the garden, his expression careful. "You have decided." Amara looked toward the trees. "I want you to continue." He did not smile. He did not celebrate. Instead, he asked, "Are you certain?" "No." His brow furrowed. "That is not the answer I expected." "I am terrified. I may regret it tomorrow. I may ask you to stop a dozen times." "You may. But tonight I am choosing to try." Rowan stepped closer. "I will protect your family." "You cannot promise that." "I can promise that I will do everything within my power." "And if Lysandra threatens war?" "Then we prepare for war." Amara stared at him. "You say that too easily." "No," his voice lowered. "I say it because she crossed into my kingdom, attacked an innocent woman, frightened witnesses into silence, and returned home believing your life did not matter." His anger was steady now. Controlled. She relied upon everyone being too afraid to challenge her. Amara looked at him. "Were you truly afraid when you saw me transform?" "Yes." The honesty surprised her. "Of me. Of what I did not understand." "Then why didn't you run?" "Because you were more frightened than I was." Amara's throat tightened. Rowan reached for her hand but stopped before touching her. She closed the distance herself. His fingers wrapped around hers. "I want to tell you something," he said. Amara's heartbeat quickened. She knew what was coming. She was not ready. "Don't." Rowan went still. "Please," she continued, "not yet." Pain flickered across his face, but he nodded. "I will wait." She wanted to explain that she was not rejecting him. She simply feared that hearing the words would make losing him unbearable. Instead, she leaned forward and rested her forehead against his chest. Rowan did not move for a moment. Then his uninjured arm settled carefully around her shoulders. Amara closed her eyes. No royal had ever held her without taking something from her. Rowan simply stood with her as the sun disappeared behind the trees. The following weeks changed everything. Rowan began preparing his case in secret. He invited scholars of forbidden magic to the palace under the pretense of reviewing old laws. He ordered copies of records from the Festival of Peace and searched through travel logs showing Queen Lysandra's movements during her visit. He also located the palace clerk who had closed Amara's father's petitions. The man had retired years earlier and lived in a small house near the southern vineyards. At first he claimed he remembered nothing. Then Rowan placed the original petition before him. The clerk's hands began to shake. "Who ordered you to close it?" Rowan asked. "No one." Rowan remained silent. The former clerk looked toward the guards stationed near the door. "I was told the accusation involved a visiting royal." "By whom?" "A member of Queen Lysandra's household." "Name him." The man swallowed. "Lord Garin, her chief advisor." "And what did he offer you?" "Gold." Rowan's expression hardened. "And if you refused?" The clerk lowered his eyes. "He said my family would disappear." The confession gave Rowan what he needed. Not enough to publicly condemn a foreign queen, but enough to prove that someone from Lysandra's court had deliberately buried the investigation. Rowan sent a discreet message to Belava, asking the healer and the baker to prepare sworn statements. He also requested that Amara's father describe every attempt he had made to reach the palace. Meanwhile, Amara tried to continue living as she always had. But Rowan's investigation seemed to enter every corner of the cottage. Each visitor on the distant road made her tense. Every unexpected bird call sounded like a warning. She slept badly. One afternoon, Rowan found her near the lake, crushing herbs more forcefully than necessary. "You are angry," he said. "I am occupied. You are destroying the mint." Amara looked down. The leaves beneath the stone had become a wet green paste. She dropped the tool. "I hate waiting." "So do I." "You can leave the forest, you have something to do. And you believe sitting in council meetings feels like progress. At least you are not trapped here." The words came out harsher than she intended. Rowan's face changed. Amara looked away. "I'm sorry." "You are right." "No, I'm not. You are trapped here." He sat beside her on the grass. "I can ride between the palace and this cottage. I can search records, question witnesses, and prepare for what comes next. You must wait for everyone else to decide whether the truth is strong enough." Amara's anger softened. "I feel useless. You survived 7 years. That is not the same as fighting." "Sometimes it is." She looked at him. Rowan picked up one of the damaged mint leaves. "Besides, I need you." "For what?" "To tell me about Lysandra. I barely knew her." "You saw her when she was not performing for a crowd. What did she say? What angered her? What words did she use during the curse?" Amara's body tightened. The memory remained painfully clear. Rowan noticed. "We can stop." "No." She drew a slow breath. "She said I had made her invisible." Rowan frowned. "You had?" "No, the villagers were speaking about me while she passed." "What else?" "She said they looked at me as though I were royalty." Amara's voice became quieter. "I told her beauty mattered less than what a person did with the life they were given." "And she took that as an insult?" "Yes." "What did she say while casting the curse?" Amara closed her eyes. "Let them admire you now." Rowan's jaw tightened. "She wanted the villagers to fear your appearance. She wanted them to stop loving me. And at the end..." Amara opened her eyes. "She said the curse would last for every day that remained to me." Rowan looked toward the lake. "Yet the full moon weakens it." She did not know. Or she did not understand the magic she used. Amara studied him. "What are you thinking?" "That the weakness in the curse may matter." "To whom?" "To someone who understands how to undo it." Hope moved through her again. She immediately resisted it. "You have not found such a person." "Not yet." Rowan rose and held out his hand. Amara took it. He helped her upright, though her serpent body hardly required the assistance anymore. Neither of them released the other. Come to the cottage tomorrow night, she said. He looked surprised. The moon will be full. Rowan's gaze softened. You want me there. I want you to see that part of my life too. I have already seen you transform. You saw it happen by accident. She looked toward the water. This time I am inviting you. The next night, Rowan arrived before moonrise. Amara's parents prepared a quiet meal, but Amara ate little. Her nerves grew with every passing minute. When the moon finally rose above the trees, she led Rowan toward the lake. Her parents remained behind. The clearing looked exactly as it had the night they first met. Silver light crossed the water. Wildflowers moved gently in the breeze. Amara stopped near the shore. Rowan stood several feet away. You do not need to watch, she said. I can turn away. No. She wanted him to see. Not because the transformation was beautiful. Because it was hers. Moonlight touched the scales of her tail. Warmth spread through her body. Amara gripped the fabric of her dress as the serpent form began to shrink. The scales faded. The long tail divided slowly, painfully, until 2 human legs rested beneath her. She fell forward. Rowan caught her before she reached the ground. For several moments, Amara clung to him, breathing through the pain. His arms remained firmly around her. When she finally steadied herself, she became aware of how close they were. Her hands rested against his chest. His face was only inches from hers. You stayed, she whispered. I said I would. Amara searched his eyes. There was no horror in them. No fascination. Only tenderness. This time when Rowan lifted one hand toward her face, she did not pull away. His fingers brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. May I? He asked. Amara knew what he meant. Her fear rose with her hope. She thought of Queen Lysandra, of the night on the road, of 7 years spent teaching herself not to want what she could not have. Then she thought of Rowan sitting outside the cottage for hours, carrying wood, listening to her parents, remembering her mother's medicine, holding her hand without demanding more. Amara nodded. Rowan kissed her gently. There was no urgency in it. No claims. Only a question answered slowly beneath the moon. Amara's hands tightened in his cloak. For the first time in 7 years, she did not feel like a woman borrowing her own body for a few brief hours. She felt fully herself. When they separated, Rowan rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said. Amara's breath caught. She had asked him to wait. He had waited until she gave him permission to come closer. Now the words were here. Real. Terrifying. She wanted to say them back. But the moment she opened her mouth, fear closed around her throat. Rowan saw it. You do not have to answer. Tears filled her eyes. It is not because I don't. I know. You cannot know. I know enough. He kissed her forehead. Keep the words until they feel safe. Amara closed her eyes. He held her beside the lake until the moon began to sink. Near dawn, the pain returned. Her legs weakened. Rowan lowered her carefully to the grass as the scales spread across her skin once more. The serpent tail returned beneath the fading moonlight. Amara turned her face away. Rowan knelt beside her. Look at me. She did. His expression had not changed. He touched her cheek with the same tenderness he had shown while she was human. The moon did not reveal the woman beneath the curse, he said. I already knew her. Amara began to cry. This time she did not hide it. And as Rowan held her beside the quiet lake, she finally understood that he was not waiting for her to become human so that he could love her. He already did. The morning after the full moon, Rowan left before sunrise. Amara watched him ride away from the cottage, while the last silver light faded from the trees. Her serpent form had returned, but something within her had changed. Rowan had kissed her while she was human. Then he had remained beside her when the curse reclaimed her body. He had touched her face with the same tenderness in both forms. For years, Amara had feared that anyone who loved the woman beneath the moon would eventually recoil from the creature daylight revealed. Rowan had not. That should have made her feel safe. Instead, it made losing him more frightening. For nearly 2 weeks he did not return. This time Amara knew why. The investigation had reached beyond old petitions and frightened villagers. Rowan was searching for someone who understood the magic itself. Still, knowing did not make the waiting easier. Each evening, Amara sat near the window with one of the books he had brought her. She read the same pages repeatedly without remembering a word. Her father noticed. "He will return." Amara looked up. "I did not say anything. You have been staring at the road for 10 minutes. I was thinking about the road." She closed the book. Her father sat across from her. He had grown less suspicious of Rowan, but not careless. Whenever the king visited, her father watched him closely, as though one wrong word might reveal the intentions of every royal who had ever harmed them. "He loves you," her father said. Amara's breath caught. "You sound unhappy about it." "I am unhappy that loving you places another target upon your back. He is trying to free me. And Queen Lysandra may learn why." Amara looked toward the hearth. "She will learn eventually." "Yes." Her father leaned forward. "That is why you must decide what you want before the palace, the queen, and the entire kingdom decide it for you." "I want the curse broken. That is not all I asked." Amara understood. Freedom was no longer the only possibility before her. There was Rowan. There was the palace. There was the future he had not yet asked her to share. "I love him," she whispered. Her father closed his eyes briefly. "You have told him." "No." "Why?" "Because saying it makes it real. It is already real." Amara looked at him. "And if he dies because of this?" Her father's expression softened. "Then silence will not protect either of you." Before Amara could answer, hoofbeats sounded beyond the trees. She was outside before the rider reached the gate. But it was not Rowan. A young palace messenger dismounted and bowed. "Lady Amara Vale." The title startled her. "No one calls me that." "The king does." The messenger removed a sealed letter from his satchel. Amara accepted it carefully. The royal seal had been pressed into dark blue wax. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Amara, I have found someone who may understand the curse. His name is Sorcerer Evander. He served the royal court before my father's reign but withdrew from public life many years ago. He has agreed to examine the evidence, but he refuses to leave his tower. I will come for you in 3 days, if you are willing to travel. You will not be brought into the palace or exposed to the court. Your family may accompany us. The choice remains yours." "Rowan." Amara read the letter twice. Her mother stepped beside her. "What does it say?" Amara looked toward the distant northern mountains. "He found someone." 3 days later, Rowan arrived with a covered carriage. Only 2 guards accompanied him, both dressed as ordinary travelers. The carriage windows were curtained, and no royal crest appeared on the doors. Amara's father examined every detail before allowing his family inside. "You planned this carefully," he said. "I have learned that your daughter dislikes being surprised." Amara looked at Rowan. "I dislike being endangered." "That too." His smile faded when he noticed her fear. "You may still change your mind." "No." Amara drew a slow breath. "I want to go." Her mother sat beside her inside the carriage. Her father rode outside with Rowan and the driver. The journey took most of the day. For the first time in 7 years, Amara travelled beyond the forest. She kept the curtains closed whenever they passed near towns, but occasionally lifted one corner to look outside. Fields stretched farther than she remembered. Villages appeared and disappeared along the road. She saw stone bridges, windmills, orchards, and distant palace towers rising above the hills. The world had continued without her. At first, that realization hurt. Then it filled her with longing. She wanted to walk through those towns. She wanted to see the northern mountains, the ocean, and the cities drawn inside Rowan's books. She wanted a life larger than the cottage and the few moonlit hours the curse allowed her. By nightfall, the carriage reached the northern tower. It stood alone on a rocky hill, surrounded by crooked trees and pale grass. The stone walls were narrow and impossibly tall, with a single lantern glowing near the top. No guards waited outside. No servants opened the door. Rowan knocked 3 times. Nothing happened. He knocked again. A voice called from within. "If you are selling religion, medicine, or royal policy, go away." Rowan glanced at Amara. His manners have not improved. The door opened by itself. Inside, hundreds of candles burned without visible flames. Books covered every wall. Glass bottles filled the shelves, holding powders, dried plants, feathers, bones, and liquids that shifted color when Amara passed. A tall elderly man stood near a spiral staircase. His silver hair reached his shoulders, and one side of his face was marked with faint golden symbols. Sorcerer Evander looked first at Rowan, then at Amara. His expression changed. "Bring her into the light." Amara's father stepped forward. "She has a name." Evander looked at him. "Then bring Amara into the light." Rowan remained beside her as she moved toward the center of the room. Evander circled her slowly. His gaze followed the length of her dark serpent tail, but unlike the villagers, he showed no fear. Only concentration. 7 years, he asked. "Yes." "Human under the full moon." "Yes." "Only the full moon." "Yes." He crouched and held one hand near her scales without touching them. Golden light spread across his palm. Amara's tail tightened instinctively. Rowan moved closer. Evander noticed. "She is not in pain." "She has had enough strangers deciding that for her," Rowan said. The sorcerer looked from Rowan to Amara. "Interesting." "What is?" Amara asked. "Nothing related to magic." Rowan frowned. Evander stood. "Tell me the exact words used when the curse was cast." Amara repeated everything she remembered. The queen's jealousy. The violet magic. The promise that the curse would last for every day remaining to her. Evander listened without interruption. When she finished, he walked toward a crowded table and opened an ancient book. "The wording matters," he said. "Why?" Rowan asked. "Because spoken curses obey intention more faithfully than language." Amara's mother looked confused. Evander turned several brittle pages. Queen Lysandra intended to make the village see Amara as a monster. She tied the curse to admiration, fear, and public perception. "Then why does the full moon restore her?" Rowan asked. "Because the moon does not judge what it illuminates." Silence filled the tower. Amara looked toward the narrow window high above them. "The queen made a mistake." "She made several." Evander approached her again. "This curse is powerful but unstable. Lysandra used magic she understood only partially." "Can you break it?" Amara asked. The question came out quietly. Evander did not answer immediately. He held his palm over the scales once more. Golden light spread outward, revealing thin violet lines beneath the surface. They twisted around Amara's body like roots. Her mother gasped. Evander's expression hardened. "I cannot simply remove it." Amara felt the hope inside her collapse. Rowan stepped forward. Why not? The curse is anchored to the person who cast it. If I tear it away without releasing that anchor, the magic may kill Amara. Her father moved beside her. Then there is nothing you can do. I did not say that. Evander closed the book. Lysandra must speak the reversal herself. Rowan's jaw tightened. She will refuse. Most likely. Can she be forced? Evander looked at him sharply. Magic spoken under ordinary physical threat may become corrupted. If she recites the reversal while resisting it completely, the curse could transfer rather than disappear. Transfer to whom? Amara asked. The nearest living vessel. Her mother gripped her hand. Rowan stared at the sorcerer. Then how do we make her undo it willingly? Evander's expression became grim. You give her something she wants more than she wants, Amara cursed. Amara thought of the queen standing on the road 7 years earlier. Her pride, her hunger for admiration, the fury she felt when villagers loved someone else. What does she want? Rowan asked. Amara already knew. To be chosen. Everyone looked at her. Amara continued. She could not bear that the villagers admired me instead of her. She wanted to be seen as the most important woman wherever she went. Rowan slowly understood. You believe she would trade the curse for greater power? Yes. Evander studied Rowan. A crown from another kingdom, perhaps. Amara's father stepped forward. No. Rowan looked at him. You are not marrying that woman. I have no intention of doing so. Then what are you considering? Rowan walked toward the tower window. The last light of evening rested along the mountains. A proposal she believes is real. Amara's stomach tightened. A false marriage. He turned toward her. A trap. The room became silent. Amara understood the plan immediately. Queen Lysandra would believe Rowan wished to unite their kingdoms through marriage. She would return expecting a crown, admiration, and greater power. Then he would demand Amara's freedom. But imagining Lysandra standing beside Rowan at an altar sent a sharp pain through Amara's chest. She knew it would be false. That did not make the image harmless. Rowan saw her expression. We will discuss nothing until you are comfortable. This may be the only way, she said. Perhaps. Evander shook his head. It is not enough to bring her here. What else? Rowan asked. You will need witnesses from both kingdoms. If Lysandra feels cornered privately, she may attack again. If she is surrounded by nobles, diplomats, and her own court, her pride will force her to maintain control. And after she removes the curse, Amara's father asked. Evander looked toward the violet lines beneath Amara's scales. The spell will leave behind an open path. Rowan's eyes narrowed. For what? For judgment. Amara felt the room grow colder. What does that mean? Evander's golden markings began to glow faintly. The magic can be reflected upon the person who created it. Her mother stared at him. You can turn Lysandra into the same creature. Yes. Amara remembered the queen's final words. Let them admire you now. A part of her had dreamed of Lysandra suffering the same humiliation. But hearing the possibility spoken aloud felt different. Would it be permanent? Amara asked. If I make it so. And her voice. Evander studied her carefully. Why do you ask? Amara looked toward Rowan. The queen used her voice to cast the curse. She used threats to keep witnesses silent. She destroyed my life with words and then returned home as though nothing had happened. Evander understood. A binding of silence. Rowan stepped closer to Amara. You do not have to decide her punishment now. Amara looked down at the dark scales covering her body. For 7 years, she had carried the consequences of one woman's jealousy. She did not want to become cruel. but she also did not want Lysandra to leave again with the power to harm someone else. If she keeps her magic, Amara said, she will do this again. Evander nodded. A permanent transformation would sever her from most human magic. Taking her voice would prevent spoken curses entirely. Amara's father looked troubled. Would we become no better than her? No, Amara said. Everyone turned toward her. She continued more slowly. She cursed me because people loved me. We would punish her because she used power to destroy an innocent life and would do it again. Rowan's expression remained serious. The punishment must happen only after the truth is exposed and your curse is removed. And she must be given the chance to undo what she did, Amara said. Evander closed the ancient book. Then you understand the difference between revenge and judgment. Night had fully settled outside the tower. Rowan arranged for the family to rest in the rooms below before beginning the journey home at dawn. Amara could not sleep. She stood on a narrow balcony overlooking the mountains. A cold wind moved through her hair. Rowan joined her quietly. For several moments neither spoke. You hate the plan, he said. I hate that it may work. He stood beside her. You do not have to watch me pretend to court her. Yes, I do. Rowan looked at her. If she believes you love her, the deception must be convincing. I will not touch her. That may not be enough. Amara hated the jealousy in her own voice. Lysandra had once allowed jealousy to turn into cruelty. Amara did not want to resemble her in any way. I know it is false, she said, but I also know what she did when strangers admired me for a few moments. What will she do when she believes a king wants her? She will become careless. And dangerous. Yes. Rowan turned fully toward her. Amara's look at me. She did. There is no woman waiting at the end of this plan except you. Her breath caught. He reached for her hand. The proposal will be false. The wedding will be false. Every promise I make Lysandra will be designed to bring her before the people who can expose her. And afterward I return to the cottage. Amara lowered her eyes. Rowan lifted her hand to his chest. You told me to wait until the words felt safe. She felt his heartbeat beneath her palm. I can wait for you, he said, but I will not allow a false ceremony to make you doubt what is real. Amara looked up at him. I love you. The words escaped before fear could stop them. Rowan went completely still. Amara's eyes filled with tears. I have loved you for longer than I wanted to admit. I was afraid saying it would give you the power to destroy me. Rowan's hand tightened gently around hers. And now, I am still afraid. He stepped closer. But you said it. Yes. He touched his forehead to hers. I love you too. This time when he kissed her, Amara did not feel like she was borrowing a moment beneath the moon. She felt as though she were choosing a future. Below them, within the tower, sorcerer Evander prepared the magic that would either free her or bind her forever. Far across the border, Queen Lysandra slept beneath silk curtains, unaware that a royal invitation would soon arrive. The invitation reached Queen Lysandra beneath a golden seal. She was seated in her private receiving room when her chief advisor placed it before her. Afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching on the jewels woven into her dark hair. Lysandra examined the seal. King Rowan, she said. Her advisor bowed, delivered by his personal messenger. That alone made her curious. Rowan had always been polite during royal gatherings, but distant. He had rejected every attempt to arrange a political marriage since taking the throne. Lysandra broke the seal. The letter was brief, carefully worded, and flattering enough to make her read it twice. King Rowan wished to strengthen the peace between their kingdoms. He praised her beauty, authority, and strength as a ruler. Then he asked her to consider becoming his queen. Lysandra slowly smiled. Her advisor watched her expression. Your Majesty. He has finally understood what every other ruler already knows. She rose and carried the letter toward the window. His kingdom needs a woman powerful enough to stand beside him. Did he name a date? He requests that I travel there immediately to discuss the union. The advisor appeared uneasy. Lysandra noticed. What troubles you? King Rowan has never shown interest in marriage. Men often resist what they secretly desire. Perhaps he. She turned toward him. You doubt that he wants me. I doubt sudden changes in royal intentions. Lysandra's smile disappeared. Be careful. The advisor lowered his head. My only concern is your safety. My safety. Her violet eyes hardened. Rowan is an honorable king, more honorable than most. He would never invite a foreign queen beneath the protection of his crown and then betray her. That certainty was exactly what Rowan had relied upon. 3 weeks earlier, he had returned to the palace from Sorcerer Evander's tower with the beginnings of a plan. Nothing about it had been simple. A false proposal could not merely sound convincing. Every detail had to withstand inspection by Lysandra's diplomats, advisors, and spies. Rowan announced to his court that he was considering marriage for the stability of the kingdom. He did not name the woman at first. Instead, he allowed rumors to spread. Nobles whispered that he had grown concerned about succession. Ambassadors reported unusual meetings between Rowan's ministers and representatives from neighboring lands. Palace servants saw jewelers, tailors, musicians, and florists summoned to discuss a royal celebration. Only a small circle knew the truth. Sorcerer Evander, Amara and her parents, the palace chancellor, the captain of Rowan's most trusted guard, and several witnesses from Belava who had agreed to testify when the time came. Even those people did not know every part of the plan. Rowan had learned that secrecy survived best when no one person held enough information to destroy it. Amara remained at the cottage while preparations began. She agreed that the deception was necessary. That did not make it painless. Every few days, Rowan visited and explained what had been done. He never hid the letters he sent Lysandra or the words he used to persuade her. Still, Amara found herself growing quieter each time he described the false courtship. One evening, Rowan arrived carrying copies of the latest correspondence. Amara sat beside the hearth in her serpent form while her mother prepared supper. Her father repaired a chair near the window. Rowan handed her the pages. You should read them. Amara looked at the letter but did not take it. I trust you. This is not only about trust. What else is it about? You deserve to know exactly what I am saying in your name. She accepted the pages. The letter praised Lysandra's commanding presence and suggested that their combined influence could reshape the surrounding kingdoms. The words felt intimate despite their political nature. Amara forced herself to keep reading. When she finished, she placed the pages on the table. She will believe this. That is the intention. You know how to appeal to her pride. I know what you told me about her. Amara looked toward the fire. She will enjoy thinking you chose her above every woman in your kingdom. Rowan knelt beside her chair. I chose no one above you. I know. Do you? She turned toward him. This plan will only work if I sometimes feel hurt by it. Knowing it is false does not stop me from imagining her reading those words. Rowan's expression softened. I can end it. No. Amara. We agreed. That does not mean you must suffer silently. She looked down at her hands. I spent 7 years believing Lysandra had taken every possible future from me. Now I am watching you offer her the appearance of one. Only the appearance. Yes. Amara met his eyes. But appearances are what she has always valued most. Rowan took her hand. She will arrive expecting a crown. And instead, She will stand before the woman she tried to erase. That thought steadied Amara. Her mother placed bowls on the table, deliberately making enough noise to end the private moment. Both of you should eat, she said. No plan improves when the people making it are hungry. Rowan smiled faintly. Amara's father did not. He had accepted the plan, but distrust remained carved into every line of his face. What happens if Lysandra arrives with an army? He asked. She will not, Rowan said. You cannot know that. A large military escort would make her appear uncertain. Her pride will not allow it. And if you are wrong? Troops have been placed along the border without public explanation. Amara looked sharply at him. You did not tell me that. I did not want you to worry. That is exactly the kind of decision you promised not to make for me. Rowan lowered his gaze. You are right. Her father watched him closely. The king continued. 2,000 soldiers have been moved north under the pretense of training exercises. They will remain out of sight unless needed. Amara's mother sat beside her. And the wedding. The ceremony will take place in the palace's great hall. Not the cathedral, Amara asked. No. Lysandra had demanded the grand cathedral in her first reply. Rowan had refused gently, explaining that he wanted the marriage witnessed inside the royal seat, so both courts could attend. The real reason was magical. Evander had spent weeks preparing hidden symbols beneath the hall's stone floor. If Lysandra attempted to cast a curse, the markings would contain it. At least that was what he believed. Nothing involving her magic could be guaranteed. The hall will be filled with nobles, Rowan said. Representatives from her kingdom will sit beside ours. The witnesses from Belava will remain hidden until the proper moment. And me, Amara asked. You and your family will enter through the eastern passage. In front of everyone. Yes. Her tail curled tightly beneath her. Rowan noticed. You may remain concealed behind the screen until I expose her. No. You do not have to let the entire court see you this way. I spent 7 years hidden because people were afraid to look at me. Amara straightened. If Lysandra is going to answer for what she did, she will look at me exactly as I am. Her father set down his tools. That hall will contain hundreds of people. I know. You have not stood before a crowd since Belava. I know that too. Her voice trembled, but she did not change her answer. Rowan brought her hand to his lips. He kissed her knuckles gently. Then I will stand beside you. The day Queen Lysandra departed her kingdom, bells rang from every tower. She travelled with more than 40 carriages, 100 guards, dozens of servants, musicians, dressmakers, jewelers, and members of her royal court. She refused to arrive like an ordinary bride. Villagers lined the roads as her procession crossed the border. She waved from a gilded carriage, accepting their cheers as proof that Rowan's people already welcomed her. Most had no idea why she was truly there. The palace had announced only that King Rowan intended to strengthen the alliance with a royal celebration. The identity of his supposed bride became public shortly before Lysandra's arrival. The news spread quickly. Some nobles approved. Others questioned why Rowan would marry a queen known for arrogance and cruelty. No one dared say so publicly. At the hidden cottage, Amara heard the distant bells announcing Lysandra's entry into the capital. Her body went rigid. Her mother stood behind her, fastening a dark blue shawl around her shoulders. She is here, Amara said. Yes. Amara looked into the small mirror. Her human face stared back above the serpent body the queen had given her. She wore no jewels, no expensive gown, only a carefully made cream dress altered to fall gracefully over the beginning of her scales. Her mother arranged her dark hair and placed several white lilies near one side. The flower seller sent them, she said. Amara touched one of the petals. She came to the palace. She and the others arrived yesterday. Amara's father entered wearing the formal coat Rowan had provided. He looked uncomfortable in it. "The carriage is ready." Amara's stomach tightened. Her mother took one hand, her father took the other. "You are not walking into that palace alone," he said. The journey to the capital passed in near silence. Their carriage entered through a private gate after dusk. Heavy curtains concealed Amara from the crowded streets, but she could hear music, laughter, and celebrations outside. The people believed a wedding was coming. They did not know justice was entering through the servants' passage. Inside the palace, Rowan waited for them. He wore a black formal coat embroidered with silver, but no crown. Amara had seen him dressed as a king before. Tonight he seemed more distant, more powerful. Then he crossed the corridor and took both of her hands, and he became Rowan again. "You came. I said I would." Her parents were led toward guarded rooms near the eastern wing. Amara remained with him. "Where is she?" she asked. "In the royal guest apartments." "Have you seen her?" "Briefly." Amara tried to keep her expression neutral. Rowan touched her cheek. She spoke for nearly 20 minutes about the ceremony, her jewels, and which nobles should sit nearest the altar. "That sounds like her." She also asked whether I intended to dismiss half my council after the marriage. Amara almost laughed. "Did you answer?" I told her we would discuss changes after the wedding. Another careful lie. "Yes." The honesty hurt less than reassurance would have. "Did she touch you?" Rowan hesitated. Amara noticed. "What happened?" She offered her hand when she entered the palace. I kissed it as formal courtesy. Jealousy moved through Amara before she could stop it. She hated the feeling immediately. Rowan lowered his voice. "I disliked it as much as you did." "That is difficult to believe." I imagined Evander turning her into a serpent halfway through. Amara laughed despite herself. The tension loosened. Rowan leaned his forehead against hers. "Tomorrow night this ends. Or everything becomes worse." "Yes." She appreciated that he did not pretend otherwise. A knock sounded at the door. The palace chancellor entered. "Your Majesty, Queen Lysandra requests your presence in the banquet hall." Rowan did not move. The chancellor looked uncomfortable. "She says she wishes to discuss the wedding privately." Amara released Rowan's hands. "You should go. I can refuse. And make her suspicious." He looked at her. Amara forced herself to remain steady. "Go." Rowan kissed her forehead. "I will return." After he left, Amara stood alone in the corridor. She told herself that the banquet, the proposal, and the wedding were all performances. But somewhere else in the palace, Lysandra sat beneath candlelight believing Rowan had chosen her. The same woman who had once destroyed Amara for being admired, now imagined herself loved by the man Amara had finally allowed into her heart. Amara moved toward the narrow window. Below, the palace courtyard glowed with lanterns. Servants carried flowers into the great hall. Musicians rehearsed beneath the arches. Tailors hurried between chambers with silver and violet fabric. Everything looked like the beginning of a beautiful royal wedding. Only a handful of people knew it had been built as a trap. In the banquet hall, Lysandra raised a jeweled cup toward Rowan. "To the future," she said. Rowan lifted his own cup without drinking. "To truth," he replied. She smiled, hearing only what she wished to hear. Later that night, Lysandra stood before a mirror while attendants arranged her wedding veil. She admired herself for a long time. 7 years earlier, she had cursed a village girl because she could not bear being overlooked. Now she believed an entire kingdom would rise to honor her. She did not know that beneath the great hall, Evander's magic had begun to awaken. She did not know that the villagers she silenced were sleeping inside the palace. And she did not know that Amara waited only a few corridors away, no longer alone, no longer forgotten, and no longer afraid enough to disappear. The palace bells began before sunrise. Their sound rolled across the capital, calling nobles, ambassadors, and citizens toward a celebration they believed would unite two kingdoms. Inside the palace, servants lit hundreds of candles in the great hall. White flowers climbed the stone pillars, violet silk draped the balconies, and gold lanterns illuminated the long aisle leading toward the raised platform. Everything had been designed to flatter Queen Lysandra. Her colors decorated the walls. Her musicians waited beside Rowan's. Her royal emblem hung beside his above the altar. The illusion had to be perfect. Behind the eastern doors, Amara waited with her parents. She wore the same cream gown her mother had prepared, its fabric falling over the beginning of her scales. White lilies rested in her dark hair. Her serpent tail filled much of the narrow chamber, coiled tightly beneath her. The voices beyond the doors sounded like distant thunder. Hundreds of people waited inside. Amara pressed one hand against her chest. Her heart beat so hard that she felt certain her parents could hear it. Her mother adjusted one of the lilies. "You do not have to be fearless," she whispered. Amara looked at her. "What if I cannot move when the doors open? Then your father and I will move with you." Her father rested a hand on Amara's shoulder. "And if anyone calls you a monster, they will answer to me." Despite everything, Amara smiled. "You cannot fight an entire royal court. I repaired a roof through 3 winters. I am capable of anything." Her mother gave him a tired look. The small moment of humor loosened the fear in Amara's chest. Then footsteps approached. Sorcerer Evander entered wearing a long dark coat embroidered with faint golden symbols. The markings along one side of his face glowed beneath the candlelight. "It is time," he said. Amara studied him. "Are the protections ready?" "As ready as magic ever is." "That is not reassuring." "It was not intended to be." Her father frowned. Evander continued. "The symbols beneath the hall will contain any spell Lysandra attempts to cast, but containment is not prevention. Stay near Rowan when you enter." "And if she refuses to reverse the curse?" Amara asked. "Then the ceremony ends, and she leaves exposed before both kingdoms." "That does not free me." "No." Evander looked directly at her. "But today she loses the protection of silence." Amara drew a slow breath. For 7 years, Lysandra's greatest defense had been that no one powerful wanted to know the truth. That was about to end. Inside the great hall, trumpets sounded. Every person rose. Queen Lysandra entered through the western doors. Her wedding gown was violet instead of white, covered in gold embroidery and gemstones. A long train followed behind her, carried by attendants from her court. She wore a jeweled crown beneath her veil. The queen moved down the aisle slowly, accepting the admiration of the room as though it belonged to her by birthright. Rowan waited at the raised platform. He wore black and silver, his expression calm enough to reveal nothing. Lysandra reached him and extended one hand. Rowan took it. He did not kiss it. A small flicker of irritation crossed her face, but she quickly smiled. "Your kingdom has honored me beautifully," she said. The day required careful preparation. She looked toward the crowded balconies. "Soon they will honor us both." Rowan released her hand. The palace chancellor stepped forward, holding what appeared to be a marriage document. "Before the union is witnessed," he announced, "His Majesty has requested that certain matters of law and history be presented before both royal courts." Lysandra's smile faded slightly. "This was not discussed." Rowan faced her. "Some truths must be heard before vows are spoken." The queen's eyes narrowed. "What truths?" The chancellor lifted one hand. The great doors at the rear of the hall opened. The retired palace clerk entered first, escorted by 2 guards. Behind him came the healer Mara, the baker from Belava, the elderly flower seller, and several other villagers. Amara's father's original petitions were carried behind them in a sealed glass case. Murmurs swept through the hall. Lysandra looked toward Rowan. "What is this?" "The past returning," he said. The retired clerk was brought before the platform. His face had gone pale. Rowan addressed him. "State your name and former position." The man obeyed. "And tell this court what happened to the petitions submitted by Tomas Vale 7 years ago." Lysandra went still. The clerk glanced toward her. That single glance was enough for several nobles to notice. He confessed. He described the petitions accusing a visiting queen of using forbidden magic against a village woman. He admitted accepting gold from Lord Garin, Lysandra's advisor, and closing the case under threat to his family. Voices rose throughout the hall. Lysandra lifted her chin. The frightened confession of a corrupt clerk proves nothing. Rowan nodded toward the healer. Mara stepped forward. She described the violet burns on Amara's body and the identical magical mark she had once treated on one of Lysandra's attendants. The baker testified about seeing the royal carriage near the abandoned chapel and being threatened into silence by the Queen's guards. The flower seller spoke last. She told the court who Amara had been. Not merely beautiful, kind, generous, loved. "We were afraid after the curse," the old woman said, her voice breaking, "and our fear helped the Queen finish what she began." The hall had become completely silent. Lysandra looked around at the watching nobles. "You have gathered villagers and criminals to embarrass me during my own wedding." Rowan's expression hardened. "There is no wedding." A sharp breath passed through the crowd. Lysandra stared at him. "What did you say?" "There was never going to be a marriage between us." The Queen's face changed. The confidence she had worn all morning cracked, revealing humiliation beneath it. "You deceived me." "Yes. You invited me into this kingdom under false promises, as you once entered it beneath the promise of peace." Violet light flickered around Lysandra's fingertips. Evander's hidden symbols awakened beneath the floor. Thin lines of gold spread across the stone. Lysandra looked down. Her anger shifted into alarm. "What have you done?" "Protected the people in this hall," Rowan said. The eastern doors opened. Amara entered. The first sound was not a scream. It was a collective gasp. Her parents walked beside her. Evander followed several steps behind. Amara moved slowly into the great hall, her dark serpent tail gliding across the polished floor. Candlelight reflected across the scales in shades of blue, black, and violet. Hundreds of faces turned toward her. Some showed fear, others sorrow. A few openly wept. Amara kept her eyes on Lysandra. The Queen had not moved. Recognition spread across her face. For 7 years, Amara had imagined this moment. She had imagined Lysandra laughing, denying everything, looking through her as though she were still insignificant. Instead, the Queen looked afraid. "You," Lysandra whispered. Amara stopped at the foot of the platform. "Yes." Lysandra's gaze travelled over the serpent body she had created. "You should have remained hidden." Amara felt her father tense beside her. She lifted one hand, stopping him. "That is what you depended upon," Amara said. "My shame, their fear, everyone's silence." Lysandra recovered enough to smile coldly. "And yet here you are, displayed before an entire court." Amara straightened. "I am not ashamed of surviving what you did to me." The words echoed through the hall. Rowan descended from the platform and stood beside her. Lysandra stared at him. "You brought that creature into your palace." Rowan's voice became dangerously quiet. "Her name is Amara." "She bewitched you." "No." Amara looked up at him. Rowan continued. You could not imagine anyone loving a woman you decided was beneath you. That failure belongs to you, not her. Lysandra's violet magic brightened. The golden symbols beneath her feet flared in response, trapping the spell close to her body. Evander stepped forward. Do not attempt it. She turned toward him. You. The sorcerer bowed faintly. It has been many years, Lysandra. You were banished from court. I left before your ignorance killed someone. Her face tightened. Rowan addressed her before she could respond. You will undo the curse. Lysandra laughed. You brought me here for that. Yes. And what do I receive in return? Your freedom to leave this hall. Her eyes moved toward the guards surrounding the room. You would imprison a foreign queen. I would imprison anyone who used forbidden magic against one of my people. Amara watched the calculation moving behind Lysandra's eyes. The queen had come expecting greater power. Now she faced disgrace, imprisonment, and the loss of her throne if her own court turned against her. Lysandra looked toward the ambassadors from her kingdom. Their expressions had changed. None stepped forward to defend her. Lord Garin was not among them. He had died 2 years earlier, leaving no one to carry the blame in her place. The queen turned back to Rowan. If I reverse the spell, this performance ends. The curse ends. And I am permitted to return to my kingdom. Rowan glanced toward Evander. The sorcerer gave the smallest nod. You will not be imprisoned here, Rowan said. It was true. But it was not the promise Lysandra thought she heard. She looked at Amara. Hatred filled her face. You believe this makes you equal to me? Amara answered calmly. No, I would never want to be. A few people in the hall lowered their heads to hide their reactions. Lysandra's pride made the decision for her. She lifted both hands. Violet magic rose around her. Evander moved to stand behind Amara. Repeat only what I tell you, he warned. Do not change a word. The queen's gaze remained fixed on Amara. Evander began the reversal. The language was older than any kingdom represented in the hall. Each phrase appeared to pull light from the candles and shadows from the walls. Lysandra repeated the words reluctantly. At first, nothing happened. Then the violet lines beneath Amara's scales began to glow. Pain tore through her body. She cried out. Rowan caught her upper body as her tail thrashed across the stone. Her parents rushed forward, but Evander raised one hand. Do not break the circle. Lysandra continued speaking. The magic wrapped around Amara, lifting her slightly from the floor. Her serpent tail began to shrink. The scales broke apart into fragments of violet light. Bones shifted. The long body divided. For one terrible moment, Amara could feel neither form. Then 2 human legs appeared beneath the torn fabric of her gown. She collapsed into Rowan's arms. The hall remained silent. Amara looked down. Her legs were still there. No moonlight. No temporary mercy. Human legs. Her mother fell to her knees beside her, sobbing. Her father covered his face. Amara reached toward the floor and pressed both feet against the cold stone. She felt it. Every part of it. The curse was gone. Rowan held her tightly. Amara. She looked up at him. I'm free. The words barely left her lips. Then a scream tore through the hall. The violet magic had not disappeared. It rushed backward along the open path between Amara and Lysandra. The queen tried to stop speaking, but the final word had already been given. Evander lifted both hands. Golden light struck the violet spell and turned it toward its source. Lysandra stumbled. What are you doing? Allowing your magic to remember its creator. Her wedding gown twisted around her legs. She screamed again as scales spread beneath the violet fabric. The nobles nearest the platform backed away. Lysandra reached for Rowan. "Stop him." Rowan did not move. Her legs fused. The jeweled shoes disappeared beneath a growing serpent body. Dark violet scales covered the lower half of her form, stretching across the platform in a long, powerful tail. The same body she had forced upon Amara. But there was no moonlight loophole within this curse. Lysandra's transformation did not stop. She tried to speak another incantation. Evander's golden markings blazed. A ring of light closed around her throat. Her voice vanished. The queen clutched at her neck. Her mouth moved. No sound emerged. Panic overtook her expression. Evander lowered his hands. "The body you forced upon the innocent is now yours," he said, "and the voice you used to curse, threaten, and silence others will harm no one again." Lysandra lunged toward him. Guards surrounded her immediately. Her serpent tail struck the platform, scattering flowers and knocking over one of the golden stands. Still, she could not speak. She looked toward her own court. No one approached. Some appeared horrified. Others looked almost relieved. The senior ambassador from Lysandra's kingdom stepped forward. He bowed to Rowan's. "Your Majesty, our council will receive her under guard." Lysandra stared at him in disbelief. The ambassador did not meet her eyes. "She will no longer rule in our kingdom." The queen's crown slipped from her head and struck the stone floor. No one picked it up. Amara watched from Rowan's arms. She expected satisfaction. Instead, she felt something quieter. An ending. The woman who had controlled her life for 7 years no longer possessed the power to decide anything for her. Lysandra was escorted from the hall, still reaching for a voice that would never return. The false wedding decorations remained behind. Violet fabric, white flowers, an altar built for vows that had never existed. The crowd turned toward Amara. She suddenly became aware that hundreds of people were staring at her human body. Her bare feet, her torn gowns, her tears. Rowan removed his cloak and wrapped it around her. Then he faced the court. "This ceremony is over." A murmur spread through the hall. He continued, "No marriage will take place today." Amara looked at him. Rowan's hand tightened gently around hers. "The woman beside me has spent years with her choices stolen from her. I will not place another decision upon her simply because this hall was prepared for a wedding." Amara's heart filled. He did not present her as his new bride. He did not use the moment to claim her. He simply helped her stand. Her legs trembled beneath her weight. Rowan supported her without lifting her. "One step," he whispered. Amara looked toward the long aisle. Her parents waited beside her. The villagers of Belava stood beyond them. The flower seller held one hand over her heart. Amara took her first step. Then another. She walked slowly down the aisle that had been built for Queen Lysandra. Not as a bride. Not as a monster. As herself. The people moved aside. Some bowed. Others wept openly. When Amara reached the great doors, sunlight poured into the hall. She stopped beneath it. For 7 years, daylight had meant scales, fear, and confinement. Now it touched human skin. Amara closed her eyes. Rowan stood beside her, still holding her hand. She turned toward him. "What happens now?" His expression softened. "Whatever you choose." Behind them, servants began removing the violet wedding decorations. Before them, the capital stretched beneath the morning sun. Amara took another step forward. For the first time since she was 19 years old, the day belonged entirely to her. Freedom did not feel the way Amara had imagined. For 7 years, she had pictured the curse ending in a single perfect moment. She believed she would stand, walk into the sunlight, and immediately become the woman she might have been if Queen Lysandra had never seen her. Instead, Amara discovered that freedom could be frightening. Her legs were weak from years without use. For the first several days, she could barely cross a room without holding someone's arm. The palace physicians assured her that her strength would return. Her body remembered more than she expected. But every unfamiliar ache made her afraid the scales would return. Each morning, she woke and immediately reached beneath the blankets to touch her legs. Each night, she stared at the moon and wondered whether the curse had truly ended or merely changed its rules. Rowan never laughed at her fear. He never told her to be grateful or insisted that she should already feel happy. He simply remained beside her. Amara and her parents stayed in a quiet palace residence surrounded by gardens. It was far enough from the royal court to offer privacy, but close enough for physicians and servants to help when needed. Her father disliked having servants. He continued attempting to repair furniture that did not need repairing. Her mother quickly took control of the residence's kitchen and dismissed 2 palace cooks after they argued with her about the proper way to prepare bread. Within a week, the royal residence felt less like a palace and more like their cottage. Rowan visited every day. Sometimes he brought books. Sometimes he brought flowers. Most often he brought nothing. He understood now that Amara did not need to be rescued from silence. She needed someone willing to sit inside it with her. They walked through the gardens as her strength improved. At first, Rowan kept one arm around her waist, while she took a few uncertain steps along the stone path. Amara hated how quickly she tired. "I used to move through the entire forest without help," she said one afternoon. "You also had a serpent body strong enough to crush a tree." She looked at him. "Was that supposed to comfort me?" "I thought it might remind you that you have survived more difficult things." "It reminded me that I could once crush a tree." Rowan smiled. Amara tried not to. She failed. A month passed. Then another. Amara learned to walk without support. She returned to Belava for the first time since her family had left. The entire village gathered along the road. No one knew whether to cheer, bow, or apologize. Amara's parents walked beside her. Rowan followed several steps behind, giving her the space to enter on her own terms. The flower seller waited near the market square with white lilies in her arms. When she saw Amara walking toward her on human legs, she began to cry. "I thought I would never see you here again." Amara took the flowers. "I thought so too." The older woman reached toward her, then hesitated. Amara embraced her first. Around them, the villagers lowered their heads. The baker stepped forward. "We failed you." Amara looked across the familiar faces. Some had defended her. Others had demanded her removal. Most had done nothing at all. For years she had imagined returning to accuse them. Now that she stood before them, the anger remained, but it no longer controlled her. "I cannot pretend what happened did not hurt me," she said, "and I will not tell you that fear excuses it." No one moved. "But I also will not spend the rest of my life carrying your shame for you." The healer Mara bowed her head. "What can we do? Remember what happened." Amara looked toward the children gathered near the fountain. "And teach them that fear does not turn cruelty into protection." The villagers agreed to restore her family's old cottage. Amara's father refused. "We already have a home." He meant the cottage in the forest. The place built from abandonment had become the place where their family survived. They chose to keep it. But they began visiting Belava again. Amara helped the healer gather herbs. Her mother returned to sewing for old neighbors. Her father accepted new carpentry work while pretending not to enjoy being needed again. And Rowan continued coming to the forest. Even after Amara was free, he did not expect her to move into the palace. He never spoke as though becoming his wife was the price of his help. He asked what she wanted. At first, Amara did not know how to answer. She wanted the cottage. She wanted the palace library. She wanted quiet nights beside the lake and mornings walking through the village. She wanted her family close. She wanted Rowan. But she did not know whether she wanted the crown that came with him. You do not have to become queen, Rowan told her. They were sitting beside the lake where they had first met. The moon was full, but it no longer controlled her body. Amara had spent the evening watching its light touch her human legs without changing them. What would happen if I married you and refused the crown? She asked. The council would complain. They already complained. Constantly. Then perhaps nothing would change. Rowan laughed. Amara leaned against him. You deserve someone who can stand beside you publicly. I want someone who tells me when my taxes are foolish. That is not the same thing. It is more useful. She looked toward the water. What if I am not made for court? Then the court will learn to adapt. You say that because you are king. I say it because you survived 7 years in a forest, exposed a foreign queen, and changed the kingdom's laws before ever entering the council chamber. Amara turned toward him. What laws? Rowan seemed suddenly interested in the moon. Rowan, he sighed. Petitions involving magical crimes can no longer be dismissed by a single clerk. They must be reviewed by the Royal Council and an independent sorcerer. You changed that. You showed me why it needed changing. Amara stared at him. He continued carefully. I also established protections for people affected by curses or magical transformations. No person may be exiled, imprisoned, or harmed solely because of their appearance without evidence that they are dangerous. Her eyes filled. How long have you been working on this? Since the first week I met you. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted the law to pass before I gave you another promise. Amara thought of the king who had once sat outside her cottage for hours because her father refused to let him inside. He had never earned her trust through grand speeches. He earned it through what he continued doing after the speeches ended. She touched his face. You were right. That is unusual. About what? I was afraid that once the curse ended, you would realize you only loved me because I needed saving. Rowan covered her hand with his. And now I know you never saw me as someone waiting to be saved. He kissed her palm. No, you saw me as difficult. Frequently. Suspicious. Reasonably. Occasionally rude. More than occasionally. Amara narrowed her eyes. Rowan smiled. Then his expression softened. I saw you. The same words that had once frightened her now felt like home. Autumn arrived. The leaves surrounding the cottage turned red and gold. Amara could walk for miles without pain. She began traveling with Rowan to nearby towns, sometimes openly and sometimes dressed simply enough to avoid attention. She saw the places from the books he had brought her. The northern bridges. The vineyards. The great libraries. The mountain road leading toward Evander's tower. Every journey reclaimed something the curse had denied her. Rowan never rushed her. He did not propose in the palace. He did not gather nobles, musicians, or witnesses. One evening, nearly 6 months after the curse was broken, he came to the cottage alone. Amara found him near the lake beneath a full moon. The same place where he had first seen her. The same place where she had first trusted him with both forms of her body. He wore no crowns. Only the dark blue coat he had worn during his earliest visits. You planned this, she said. I have learned from your mother that planning improves most things. She will be pleased to hear that. Rowan reached for her hand. Amara noticed that he was nervous. She had seen him face angry nobles, assassins, and a powerful queen without trembling. Now his fingers were unsteady. That made her heart race. Amara, he began, I know what was taken from you. She held his gaze. But I do not want our future to be built only around what happened in the past. He knelt. Amara's breath caught. Rowan removed a ring from inside his coat. It was not enormous or covered in gemstones. A dark blue stone rested inside a delicate silver band shaped like leaves. I will not ask you to become something you do not want to be, he said. You may live at the palace, the cottage, or both. You may accept the title of queen or create another place beside me. His voice grew softer. I am not asking because I freed you. I did not. You survived long before I found you. Tears filled Amara's eyes. I am asking because every life I imagine for myself feels incomplete when you are not in it. He held the ring toward her. Will you marry me? Amara looked at the man kneeling before her. Months earlier, a palace hall had been prepared for a wedding built on deception. That false ceremony had been enormous. This moment held only moonlight, water, trees, and the distant glow of her family's cottage. It was perfect. Yes. Rowan's eyes closed with relief. Amara laughed through her tears. Yes, I will marry you. He placed the ring on her finger and rose. She pulled him into a kiss before he could say anything else. The full moon shone above them. Nothing changed. No scales. No pains. No fear. Only Amara and Rowan, standing together beside the lake. Their wedding took place in spring. It was grand enough for a king, but warm enough for Amara. They did not use the great hall where Lysandra's false wedding had been staged. Instead, they married in the palace gardens beneath flowering trees. White lilies lined the aisle. The villagers of Belava attended beside nobles from across the kingdom. Sorcerer Evander stood near the back, complaining that ceremonies were too long while refusing to leave early. Amara's mother helped dress her. Her gown was ivory and gold, with small blue stones sewn along the sleeves. Her dark hair fell in soft waves down her back, decorated with lilies from the old flower cellar. Her father waited outside the room. When Amara stepped toward him, he stared for several seconds. What? She asked. He wiped his eyes quickly. Your mother put dust in the hallway. There is no dust in the palace. Then the palace is poorly built. Amara took his arm. Together they entered the garden. Rowan waited beneath an arch covered in flowers. He wore his crown for the ceremony, but when he saw Amara, he seemed to forget everyone else was present. Her father walked her to him. Before releasing her, he looked at Rowan. She is not yours because you are king. I know. She chooses you. Rowan met Amara's eyes. I know that too. Her father placed her hand in his. The vows were simple. Rowan promised to listen before deciding, to remain when life became difficult, and never to confuse love with possession. Amara promised honesty, loyalty, and a life chosen freely beside him. When they exchanged rings, the crowd began to applaud. But Amara barely heard them. Rowan touched her cheek. May I? She smiled. You still ask. Always. Amara kissed him. The bells rang across the kingdom. Petals filled the air. Her parents embraced beside the villagers who had once feared they would never see her walk among them again. Months later, Amara accepted the title of queen. Not because Rowan demanded it. Because she decided the crown could become something different in her hands. She established homes for people cast out because of curses, illness, or appearances others did not understand. She required every magical accusation to be investigated. And whenever fear threatened to become cruelty, the kingdom remembered the woman it had once abandoned. As for Lysandra, she was returned to her homeland under guard. Her council removed her from the throne. She remained in the serpent form she had once forced upon Amara, unable to cast another spoken curse or command others through fear. She was not tortured. She was not killed. She simply lived with the body she had once called monstrous and the silence she had imposed upon everyone around her. Years later, people stopped telling the story as one about a beautiful girl cursed by a jealous queen. They told it as the story of a woman who survived being hidden, feared, and nearly erased. A woman who was loved before her body changed back. And a king who did not wait for moonlight to see who she truly was. On every full moon, Amara and Rowan returned to the lake beside the cottage. Sometimes they brought their children. Sometimes they came alone. They sat near the water and remembered the night their lives first crossed. Amara no longer hated the moon. It had once offered her only a few borrowed hours of humanity. Now it illuminated a life that belonged entirely to her. And when Rowan looked at her beneath its silver light, Amara knew the curse had never succeeded in turning her into a monster. It had only revealed who was capable of seeing her heart, and who never had one of their own,